Chapter leaving. The original body's expression was still cold as he slowly asked, "Where did the two of you come from?" The white-veiled woman's body shook as she looked at the old man who might be dead. She was filled with despair and no longer dared to lie. Junior just came from the immortal graveyard. The original body looked at the white-veiled woman and calmly said, "There were 7 of you when you entered the immortal graveyard. Why did only the 2 of you come out?" The white-veiled woman's body trembled again. She was shocked at this young man. The more she looked at him, the more familiar this red-haired young man became, but she was sure she had never met him before. The white-veiled woman bitterly said, "Junior has her own difficulties." "Follow me." The original body looked at the white-veiled woman and then flew toward the forest below them. The white-veiled woman hesitated for a bit before following. As for the old man, the original body didn't even look at him. That old man was only at the early stage of soul formation, and he didn't have any treasures to protect himself with, so he was dead for sure. However, just at this moment, the original body looked at where the old man had landed. He saw a tattered figure stand up. This person was covered by a black fog. A 5-leaf plant appeared within the fog. The old man coughed out blood inside the fog and was struggling, however. His eyes were still clear. The original body only took one look, and his face darkened. When he looked at the white-veiled woman, her expression was completely pale and terrified. So it was like that. The original body immediately understood how the 2 of them didn't die and were able to leave. The original body raised his hand and was about to kill the old man. At this moment, the white-veiled woman quickly put herself between the original body and the old man. Then she kneeled down and said, "Senior must have known one of those 5 people. Junior admits her mistake. If you have to kill someone, please kill me. Please don't make it difficult for him." The old man struggled to stand up. He looked at the original body and said, "If you are going to kill me, just kill me. I am tired of living like someone else's puppet. I might as well die by Senior's hand. However, my lady has always been against this, so please let her go." The original body's eyes lit up. He looked at the 2 before grabbing them and taking them to the immortal graveyard. Along the way, the wound on the old man's body slowly healed and the black fog disappeared. However, the plant on his forehead would still occasionally shine. The white-veiled woman closed her eyes and began to ponder. Soon, the original body arrived at the entrance of the immortal graveyard. After landing, the original body punched the air toward the hole, and a spatial rift opened up. He flicked out 2 drops of blood. One landed on the white-veiled woman and the other on the old man before throwing them into the spatial rift. "Go search for Wang Lin. If you can find him, I'll let you 2 live." The original body's voice echoed in their minds before the spatial rift closed. The original body sat cross-legged outside and began to ponder. He couldn't go inside because there would be no one to guide Wang Lin out if he did. However, if he didn't go inside, it would be too difficult to find himself. This was why he didn't kill the 2 of them but left imprints to make them search. Inside the void, Wang Lin sat on the star compass. He suddenly opened his eyes and muttered, "So that's what happened." His eyes became cold as he stood up and controlled the compass to start moving. At the same time, he had his divine sense spread out looking for the 2 in the void. Time slowly passed. One day, Wang Lin's eyes suddenly lit up and he started to fly even faster. Soon, he saw 2 people flying in the distance. It was that old man and the white-veiled woman. The 2 of them were a mess right now, and their vitals were very weak. After the 2 of them saw Wang Lin, they revealed complex expressions. The white-veiled woman wanted to say something, but she only opened her mouth before closing it and letting out a sigh. Wang Lin coldly looked at the 2 and arrived before them. He waved his hand and 2 drops of blood flew from their foreheads into Wang Lin's hand. The white-veiled woman hesitated for a bit and whispered, "Senior, Wang Lin didn't even bother with the 2 of them. After getting the 2 drops of blood, he put away the star compass. Just at this moment, the original body suddenly opened his eyes and punched the air, causing a round spatial rift to appear. The rift appeared right before Wang Lin. Wang Lin was not shocked by the appearance of the rift and entered it. From the beginning, he hadn't said a thing to the 2 of them. After Wang Lin entered the rift silently closed, leaving the 2 of them to fend for themselves inside the void. After coming out of the rift and feeling the sunlight on his skin, he took a deep breath. The feeling of making it out alive filled his body. He lowered his head and looked at the hole below him before disappearing. His original body disappeared along with him. Wang Lin left the immoral graveyard and arrived back at the valley. He took out the pagoda before sitting down to cultivate. The original body also sat down next to him to cultivate. One day later, Wang Lin and his original body both opened their eyes. Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and took out the reincarnation fruit that was glowing yellow. After pondering for a bit, he came to the conclusion that this fruit was much more useful to his original body than the one he was currently using. Unfortunately, there is only one. Wang Lin tossed the fruit toward his original body. The original body crushed the fruit, causing a golden liquid to leak out. There wasn't tea much, but the liquid was absorbed when it touched the original body's skin. The liquid slowly moved through the cracks on the original body's skin. The current original body looked like it was covered by a golden net. The cracks on its skin originally weren't noticeable, but right now, the cracks were emitting a golden glow. The golden glow became brighter and brighter until it seeped into the original body's flesh and bones and disappeared. The original body's expression still remained the same, and then a hint of gold flashed across his eyes. The reincarnation fruit had been completely absorbed by the original body, so the speed at which it absorbed spiritual energy increased countless fold. The current original body could finally be considered a real ancient god. As for the reincarnation fruit, it had disappeared. The original body stood up and sank into the ground. Wang Lin took a deep breath, slapped his bag of holding, and pieces of the reincarnation tree appeared before him. He picked one up and started to create the time domain carvings. Time slowly passed by. Zhou Ru was now 3 years old and very beautiful. However, she still hadn't said a word. Because of this, her parents had searched for many different doctors, and she had eaten many pills, but she still never spoke. Little Zhou Ru was a very quiet girl. Instead of playing with the other children in the village, she always silently looked at the sky from her backyard. Her eyes were filled with confusion. Zhou Ru's father, a burly man with rough hands, looked at his daughter and let out a sigh. He had bought many different medicines for his daughter and looked for many doctors, but this kid still wouldn't speak. Is she really a mute? Zhou Ru's dad let out a sigh. On this day, an old man wearing a cultivation robe entered the village. The village chief respectfully greeted him and told everyone to bring out all children 6 years old or younger. Shortly after, all 19 6-years-old and younger kids arrived at the center of the village along with their parents. Zhou Ru's parents were among them. Zhou Ru's clear eyes looked at her surroundings. She was kind of scared, so she was clenching the edge of her mother's dress. The woman crouched on the ground to comfort her. She then stood up, looked at her husband and said, "Ru is too little. Let's forget about this." Zhou Ru's father shook his head and said, "Let her try. If she gets picked, then her future will be good." The woman bit her lower lip and didn't say anything. The old man wearing the robe had an air of arrogance about him. He was already a bit impatient because he had gone to countless villages and hadn't found anyone with a spirit root. If it wasn't for the fact that the sect had a rule stating that a disciple must go out to find a child with a spirit root every 6 years, he wouldn't have bothered to leave the sect. He came to this village 6 years ago and 12 years ago and didn't find a child with a spirit root either time. I was able to find a child with a spirit root 6 years ago at Liu Village. I wonder if I can find another one there this time. If I can find another one, then I can receive 3 medium-quality spirit stones. The old man looked at the children one by one. His eyebrows furrowed harder and harder, and the look of disappointment on his face became even stronger. His eyes suddenly became focused and locked onto Zhou Ru. He quickly arrived before Zhou Ru and pointed at her forehead. His face was filled with joy. This naturally born with spiritual energy, all her meridians are opened, and a purple aura. Good. The old man stared at Zhou Ru. What he saw wasn't the child but a shining high-quality spirit stone. His sect was very small, but they were a branch of the Cloud Sky sect, so they did have some wealth. Although the elders were usually stingy, they rewarded disciples who found good talents very generously. The old man laughed and said to the elders of the village, "This kid, I'll take it." Zhou Ru's eyes were filled with panic as she held tightly to her mother's dress. Her face was pale. Tears streaming long, wishing for the like button for the video. Chapter 357 Uncle. The woman revealed a sad expression as she hugged Zhou Ru, and looked at her husband for help. Zhou father pondered a bit and said, "Dao Chang, this kid is a mute." "Mute? No problem." The old man flicked his finger and the woman was forced back a few steps. He grabbed Zhou and smiled. "Okay, you come with me." Zhou's face was filled with fear. Her body trembled and tears started streaming down her cheeks. She was only a 3-year-old kid, so she was terrified right now. Zhou's father clenched his fists and was about to speak when the old man frowned. He looked over and coldly said, "To have your kid picked is your luck. Don't be noisy." At this moment, the elder of the village quickly went to calm Zhou's parents. The old man snorted and said, "I am not here to steal your kid but to give her a good future. You will still have chances to meet in the future." With that, he held Zhou and walked toward the village exit. Zhou panicked and began to cry. Her voice was filled with fear. "Father, mother." A tender voice suddenly came out of her mouth. The old man laughed. "So, mute. That is even better. Tears flowed down the woman's cheeks. She was about to go chase after her daughter when her husband stopped her and said, "It is her luck to be chosen." After the old man left the village, the more he looked at Zhou, the happier he became. A high-quality spirit stone. Ha-ha. With it, I can attempt to break through to the mid-stage of foundation establishment. Little girl, I won't mistreat you. Once you grow older, I'll take you as my disciple. He was just about to take out the flying sword to return to the sect when Zhou bit his hand. However, how much strength could a 3-year-old have? This still made the old man frown. He snorted and said, "You really don't know what's good for you." With that, he raised his hand to slap Zhou. He wanted to teach her a lesson so she wouldn't be crying the entire way as if he was stealing someone else's kid. "You dare!" The old man had just raised his hand when he felt his body turn cold and sweat covered his back. A white-robed youth mysteriously appeared in front of him. The old man quickly put down Zhou and respectfully said, "Senior, Junior." Without waiting for him to finish speaking, Wang Lin waved his sleeves and the old man was blown away by a powerful wind. Wang Lin stared at Zhou. 1 year ago, he told Tai Yan to return to the Cloud Sky sect, and that he would be personally watching over her. He originally wanted to act earlier, but decided to wait for the old man to take Zhou away before appearing. Looking at Wang Lin, the fear in Zhou's eyes disappeared and was replaced by confusion. Zhou said, with her crisp voice, uncle." Uncle Wang Lin let out a sigh and said, "Come with uncle, okay?" The confusion became even stronger in Zhou's eyes. She didn't even know why, but she sensed a great deal of attachment toward the uncle before her, so she nodded. Wang Lin revealed a complex expression and picked up Zhou. He covered her in spiritual energy as if he was afraid she would catch a cold from the cold air while flying. He jumped into the sky and slowly disappeared over the horizon with Zhou in his arms. Wang Lin appeared under the pagoda with Zhou and built a stone house just like before. Wang Lin put down Zhou and softly said, "We are home." Zhou quietly nodded. Her large eyes looked all around, but she didn't touch anything. Instead, she stood next to Wang Lin. No matter where Wang Lin went, she would closely follow him. Even when Wang Lin was cultivating, she sat down next to him with a hint of confusion in her eyes. At night, after Zhou had fallen asleep, Wang Lin stood beside the bed looking at Zhou's small face and whispered, "Wan ear, right now your nascent soul is unstable, so your memories can return. Once you turn 19, they will naturally return." He stared at Zhou and memories of Li Muwan flashed through his mind. After letting out a sigh, Wang Lin tucked Zhou in and left the room. Zhou wasn't like him, who only needed to cultivate to nourish himself. For a 3-year-old, food was the best thing to nourish their body. Wang Lin built a kitchen and went out to buy a lot of food. Someone who hadn't cooked in 500 years was now cooking for Zhou. When Zhou woke up in the morning, the first thing she saw was Wang Lin silently cultivating. She rested her chin on her arm and watched Wang Lin. Wang Lin opened his eyes, rubbed Zhou's head, and smiled. "Are you hungry?" Zhou nodded. Wang Lin waved his right hand, and a bowl of porridge appeared. After he finished feeding Zhou, she asked him, "Uncle, why can this bowl fly?" Wang Lin faintly smiled. He didn't speak but closed his eyes and continued to cultivate. Time slowly passed and Wang Lin became immersed in his life as he slowly watched Zhou Ru grow up. The feeling of when he turned into a mortal appeared in his heart once more. This was a very calm and peaceful feeling. One night, while Wang Lin was cultivating, a scream suddenly came from within the stone house. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he immediately charged into the room. He saw that little Ru'er had kicked her covers away and her hands were clenched together with a struggling expression on her face. "Uncle, save me, uncle, father, mother." Wang Lin's right hand touched Zhou Ru's forehead and he sent in some spiritual energy. Soon, Zhou Ru calmed down and opened her eyes. Her eyes were like the stars. After seeing Wang Lin, she began to cry and slowly told Wang Lin what happened. He let out a smile. It all turned out to be a dream. She dreamed that she was in a dark place and her father, mother, and even uncle left her, so she was all alone in the darkness. Hold this. If something like that ever happens again, just ring this bell. With that, Wang Lin took out a bell and put it in her hand. This bell was the one Qiu Siping had given him. After studying it, Wang Lin realized that this bell seemed to have come from the same place as the bell the ancient cultivators gave him. After researching it, he was able to learn some ways of using the 3 bells. Wang Lin was very happy with their power. What was even more valuable was that these 3 bells had some mysterious connection to each other. As long as one holds one of the bells, no matter where the other ones are, the people holding them will feel something. Other than that, Wang Lin found another sword sheath inside Qiu Siping's bag. The moment Wang Lin saw the sword sheath, he immediately took out the 3 he already had. Comparing them, the 4 sword sheaths looked exactly the same. Only the patterns on them were different. In the blink of an eye, 2 years passed by. Zhou Ru was now 5 years old. Within these 2 years, Wang Lin didn't know when to laugh or cry. Zhou Ru had become less quiet and more playful. Whenever he was not around, she would take out the bell and play with it, causing Wang Lin to immediately appear. Wang Lin was helpless against this and he didn't tell her to stop. However, Zhou Ru was very smart. After a few times, she no longer rang it and kept it close to her like a treasure. In these 2 years, he took her to see her parents once, but it was after they had fallen asleep. On this day, Wang Lin was cultivating. When he opened his eyes, he saw Zhou Ru secretly walking out of the pagoda with a bowl of porridge in her hand. She stuck out her tongue at Wang Lin and ran up to him. "Uncle, uncle, I saw the fairy elder sister again, but she still won eat." When Zhou Ru was 4 years old, she secretly went up the pagoda and saw the female corpse. After that, Zhou Ru began to think about the female corpse and would occasionally go up there to check on her. One time she even brought the porridge Wang Lin had made for her up there to try to feed the female corpse. Wang Lin really didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he didn't stop her. After all, she was still young, so he just let her do as she wished. However, he seriously explained the matter about trying to feed the female corpse. But Zhou Ru still didn't understand why the white-dressed elder sister only slept and didn't eat. Wang Lin helplessly said, "Your fairy elder sister doesn't eat, so don't bring porridge up there anymore." Wang Lin felt like this was a bit messy. Zhou Ru called the female corpse elder sister but called him uncle. If one day Zhou Yi comes back and hears this, what kind of expression will he make? "Won't she be hungry? If I don't eat for a day, I will be very hungry." Little Zhou Ru looked at Wang Lin with her big eyes and said, "I'll leave the porridge next to her and she can eat it when she wakes up. Uncle doesn't have to worry about me." Wang Lin bitterly smiled and was about to say something when his expression suddenly changed. He looked into the distance and said, "Little Ru'er, go inside the pagoda." "Okay. Are the bad guys here again? They are so annoying." Zhou Ru nodded and returned to the pagoda with the bowl of porridge. 1 year ago, many cultivators from other countries came here to challenge Xianxia. At the start, Wang Lin completely ignored them. With the domain of the pagoda, they couldn't even get close. However, they didn't stop but got more aggressive. They would spy on them from the mountains on the side and wave around their magic treasures. One night, Zhou Ru was sleeping and was awoken by a magic treasure. She was so scared that she ran out crying. At that moment, Wang Lin went outside. When he returned, there were 7 bloody heads on the surrounding mountains. After that, no one dared to make any noise at night. However, the challengers never stopped coming. There were even famous soul formation cultivators among them. After he started killing, he didn't go easy on them. Every time a challenger came, he would kill them. People gradually stopped challenging him, but someone would occasionally show up. A cold voice came from the mountains. It said, "Seng Niu, Shui Yes Liao Fan is here to ask for the feather fan back. The like button for the VIDEO is in danger. Urgently wishing for the like button for the VIDEO's aid." Chapter C29. Country of Shui Yu. Wang Lin calmly walked out of the valley and saw a young man wearing blue waiting outside. Although he wasn't handsome, his blue robe made him look very cold. This person's eyes were very bright and his skin looked ice cold. Just him standing there seemed to cause a cold wind to blow by to take away all the warmth. After seeing Wang Lin come out, a hint of coldness flashed across his eyes. He clasped his hands and said, "Seng Niu, hand over the feather fan." Wang Lin glanced at the young man. This person's cultivation level was mid-stage soul formation. Wang Lin took out the 2 feathers and tossed them to the side. The bottom parts of the feathers stuck into a mountain on the side. The top parts that were sticking out gently swayed with the wind. The young man immediately charged toward the mountain. Wang Lin touched the bag of holding with his right hand and took out 2 bells. The 2 bells let out a crisp ring and a sound wave began to spread. Liao Fan snorted. His right hand formed a seal, and with a flash of white light, many blades made of ice suddenly appeared. Under his control, the ice blades flew toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin laughed. Instead of backing up, he charged forward and threw out the 2 bells. The bells immediately grew large and began to ring. Cracks immediately appeared on the ice blades and they soon all shattered. As the bells rang, cracks even appeared on the mountains. Liao Fan's expression remained calm. He had already heard of how strong this Seng Yu was. His mission here wasn't to retrieve some treasure, but to scout. Once he landed, his hands formed a seal, his eyes became cold, and he sent the seal forward. White light suddenly emitted from his body and formed an illusion before him. This illusion wasn't the normal Shui Yu cultivation image, but an old man sitting in the lotus position. After the old man's image was created, he opened his eyes. When he opened his eyes, Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he sent out a ray of spiritual energy toward the bells. The bells began to spin and collide with each other. This was one of this treasure's uses that Wang Lin had discovered after studying it for so long. As the bells spun and collided, their ringing got louder. Liao Fan was pushed back a few feet before staring at the bell and shouting, "Kill!" The old man's image raised his hand and pointed at Wang Lin. His entire image suddenly turned into gas and charged toward Wang Lin. It was as fast as lightning. Wang Lin's body disappeared with a teleport and reappeared in the sky. The gas created by the image seemed to have a life of its own and followed him. "Seng Niu, if you are only this strong, then just die." Liao Fan stared at Wang Lin and sneered as he took out a bronze clock. There were 12 symbols on this clock. They represented the 12 months on Suzaku. There were countless smaller lines under them representing each day of the month. He hit the clock with his left hand, and it began to spin. The symbol representing August began to shine, and then one of the smaller lines began to shine as well. Today is August 9th. Seng Niu, this is the day you die. As Liao Fan finished speaking, he threw the bronze clock into the air. 2 strange claws popped out from the block. Each claw had a source of golden light within them. Wang Lin's expression still remained calm. His hand formed a seal and pointed at the 2 bells. The 2 spinning bells suddenly collided and broke into pieces. Tons of debris began to spin around Wang Lin. He gently said, "Armor." The debris immediately surrounded Wang Lin to form a green glowing armor. On the armor was the symbol of the 2 bells. Wang Lin didn't dodge the gas formed by the image of the old man. He let it hit his armor. Waves of ripples appeared on his armor, and the gas was weakened. More ripples occurred, and the gas disappeared. This sonic wave spirit armor is indeed useful. Wang Lin smiled and looked toward Liao Fan. The claws were now reaching toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin snorted, touched his bag of holding, and took out the celestial sword. With one swing, the claws were destroyed and a crack appeared on the bronze clock. Liao Fan was also hit in the chest by this attack, causing him to cough out blood. He was forced back many steps, and his face was pale. However, his eyes revealed a hint of joy as he laughed. "Seng Niu, prepare to die." Wang Lin frowned. Just at this moment, a roar came from within the bronze clock. More cracks appeared on the clock, and then suddenly a withered arm appeared. After the arm shook once, the bronze clock turned to dust. There was a cloud of black gas moving like fire coming from the arm that was floating in the air. Wang Lin's right hand formed a seal and created a strange wind that blew the black gas back, revealing what was inside. There was a withered arm floating there, and the black gas came from the arm. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he swung the celestial sword. The black gas immediately moved to block for the arm. However, the sword energy cut through the black gas and hit the arm. A wound appeared on the arm, and another roar came from within the arm. A large amount of black gas came out from the wound and took the shape of a person. This was a figure created by black gas. It had no facial features, but it had two ghostly orbs for eyes. Wang Lin's expression became serious. This Liao Fan was one of the few mid-stage soul formation cultivators with very powerful treasures. These people were very difficult to deal with. The figure created by the black gas opened its mouth and let out a roar. The figure moved very fast, and before it even got close, Wang Lin could already feel the cold aura it was emitting. A sense of danger appeared in Wang Lin's heart. The grass in the valley suddenly turned to ice only to quickly be shattered by the wind. Even the surrounding cliffs were covered by a layer of blue ice when they were hit by this wave of cold energy. This kind of cold was several times more powerful than ice or snow. This aura spread out like crazy and surrounded Wang Lin. The cold energy entered his body and almost froze his blood. After noticing this aura, Wang Lin's heart trembled and his eyes lit up. He was very familiar with this aura. It was exactly the same aura that came from cultivating the underworld ascension method. However, the cold energy emitted by this figure was countless times more powerful than the one he had cultivated. Only when Situnan had used his body did the cold energy match this figure's. He immediately backed up, then his right hand formed a seal and pointed forward. Then the blue flame created from cultivating the underworld ascension method that he hadn't used in a very long time suddenly appeared at the tip of his finger. This was a ball of dark blue flame. Instead of releasing heat, it released cold energy. The moment the blue flame appeared, the cold energy that had just invaded Wang Lin disappeared. Even the surrounding cold energy was absorbed by the blue flame. The black figure suddenly stopped. His ghostly eyes were sparkling. He stared at the ice flame and said, with a husky voice, "Underworld ice flame, even the underworld Tao that I left behind for my disciple, can cultivate an ice flame this pure. Where did you get the underworld ascension method?" Wang Lin's body quickly backed up. With a few steps he was able to back up into the range of the pagoda and stop. "Who are you?" After Wang Lin heard the voice, even with his 500 years of being a cultivator, he was shocked. This was the kind of shock that he had never heard of before. Wang Lin felt his scalp go numb. He was too familiar with this voice. "No matter where you got it, you must die. I am Situnan." The figure quickly charged into the range of the pagoda and aimed for Wang Lin's head. Wang Lin suppressed the shock in his heart and shouted, "Back off!" Zhou Yi's domain suddenly came out from the pagoda, and the figure was hit by a powerful force, stopping him just 3 feet before Wang Lin. The figure let out a reluctant roar and its body was tossed out. The moment he was pushed out, the black gas disappeared, leaving only the arm. It grabbed the shocked Liao Fan and disappeared. Wang Lin stared at the retreating figure and muttered, "Situnan impossible." How could it be like this? He was confused as he retrieved the feathers and returned to the valley. Sitting under the pagoda, he stared at the sky and memories of his time with Situnan appeared in his mind. Situnan, he called himself Situnan. Zhou peeked out from the pagoda. After looking at Wang Lin, she walked out and sat before him. This was the first time she had seen this uncle like this. He seemed confused but also seemed to be recalling some old memories. After sitting for a while, Zhou sneakily went into the kitchen and came out with a big bowl of porridge. If Uncle doesn't want me to feed Fairy elder sister, then I'll go secretly feed her." She went around Wang Lin's back into the pagoda and let out a cheer. The like button for the VIDEO has dropped to 5th place. Tears brimming and wishing for the like button for the VIDEO. Chapter Back Mountain. More than 40 inner disciples stood inside the hall. There were disciples of black, white, and red rank, but no purple. All of these disciples had serious expressions. Among them, Wang Lin could see many faces that he knew, like Wang Zhuo, the girl named Shu, the girl named Zhou, apprentice brother Zhang, and such. Right in front of them sat 2 rows of more than 10 elders, all with cold expressions. Right in the middle sat a person, about 40 years old, wearing a blue gown, with eyes like lightning. He said, "Junior brother's son, this is your disciple." Sun Daju quickly put up a smiling face and said, "Elder apprentice brother, this is my disciple Wang Lin." He entered the sect late, so he doesn't know the meaning behind the bell ringing 5 times. A red-faced man sitting on the right sneered, "The disciple is really like his master. He's kinda dumb, just like you were back then." A man on his side laughed. "Apprentice brother isn't correct. Junior brother's son at least had some talent, so he was much stronger than his disciple." Son Daju's face changed between red and white for a while. He gave Wang Lin a hard look. He snorted and ignored Wang Lin and went to sit down. The man in the blue gown frowned. He looked at Wang Lin one more time before forgetting about him and said, "As said before, these 4 years of intense training must provide results. We must win in the competition against Xuan Daozong. Starting today, you'll be entering the back mountain. Everyone will be provided with their own cultivation place. This time, the sect will provide 10,000 QI gathering pills for you all to use. None of you may leave the mountain during this time." All of the inner disciples replied in unison. The man in the blue gown nodded and continued to say, "I hope that in 4 years one of you will become a purple-clothed disciple." Purple-clothed disciple means a core disciple far more important than inner disciples. Forget it, experience it for yourself. Now, all of you, go to the back mountain and someone will lead to you the cultivation ground. After he finished speaking, he waved his sleeves and a white light shot out from them. After circling the hall once, he growled, "Open!" The white light suddenly expanded and soon engulfed all of the inner disciples. "Go." Following the growl from the man in the blue gown, the white light sparkled and disappeared from the main hall. Wang Lin felt a warm sensation in his body. After the blink of an eye, he found himself inside a valley. This place had much more spiritual energy than the other places. Sounds of water could be heard from all sides. He scanned the area and found the other inner disciples chatting with each other. This valley had no plants. It was a cliff with many holes carved into it, like a beehive. Some of the holes were sealed with giant rocks. Suddenly Wang Lin noticed that someone was watching him. He turned around and saw Wang Zhuo smiling at him coldly. At that moment, a youth came out from one of the holes in the cliff. He was wearing purple clothes and coldly looked at everyone. He said, "Fellow apprentice brothers and sisters, this is the back mountains of the Heng Yu sect." As for back mountain, it's not really the back of the Heng Yu sect, but a cultivation ground for inner disciples built by several soul transformation stage experts 500 years ago. This place has much thicker spiritual energy than normal. Since you are here, you must concentrate on cultivating, or else Don T blame U.S. seniors for kicking you out of the back mountain. Wang Lin recognized this purple-clothed youth. He was the person that bought Wang Lin's spiritual energy liquid. It was rumored that he was already at the 6th layer of QI condensation, and that he was very unpredictable. Wang Lin lowered his head. This kind of scheming he understood well because he put him into a dangerous situation before. "I have the chance for the 7th layer and below. If you reach that level but don't have the chant, come to me. Once I check you, I'll give it to you. As for where you will be practicing, any one of these caves that isn't sealed can be chosen. Here are bottles of QI gathering pills. Each bottle contains 50 pills and will be refilled once a year." After he finished speaking, he waved his hand and 50 white bottles appeared on the ground. Some of the inner disciples stepped forward and took a bottle, then started to look for the entrance to the cultivation area. Wang Lin took a deep breath. Because he took a disguise pill back then, that person didn't know his identity, so he went up and took a bottle. Zhang Guang stood at the side, looking at the inner disciples take the bottles one by one, when he suddenly saw Wang Lin. He had a strange look on his face and said, "What's your name? How come you haven't even reached the 1st layer of QI condensation? Who is your master?" And apparently, his name changed from Kenji to Zhang Guang. Whatever. Wang Lin stopped and turned around. He respectfully said, "Senior brother, my name is Wang Lin. My master is Sun Daju. My talent is lacking. That's why I haven't reached the 1st layer yet." Zhang Guang was stunned. He smiled. "You are Wang Lin? I heard about you before. Although talent is important, perseverance is also key. Since your talent is lacking, you must work even harder." Wang Lin quickly promised. "This cliff is too high for you since you're not even at the 1st layer. I'll give you a lift." Zhang Kuang waved his sleeves. An invisible force appeared under Wang Lin's feet and pushed him until he was in front of a cave. Wang Lin respectfully thanked Zhang Kuang. After he turned around and entered the cave, his face quickly darkened. If he hadn't met this apprentice brother before, he would have been thankful, but after seeing his true nature, he would of course not take this small favor to heart. The cave wasn't large. There was only a stone bed and a lever on the wall. Wang Lin walked over and pulled the lever. Suddenly, a roaring sound could be heard as a giant rock fell down and completely sealed the cave. After carefully examining the cave again and finding nothing wrong, Wang Lin was very satisfied with the place. When he looked for Sun Daju, he wanted to look for a place to cultivate outside of the sect. Although he was rejected, the current situation led him to a place that was pretty close to his original plans. The only downside was that there was no source of water inside the cave. Wang Lin's cultivation mainly relied on the spiritual energy liquid. But in his bag of holding, he had collected a lot of snow water, so it should be enough for him to use for a while. He also heard sounds of water inside the valley. As long as he was a bit cautious, water shouldn't be an issue. Forgot to mention, at the end of the month, wishing for the like button for the video. Chapter. Situ Wang Lin's eyes became serious as he pointed at his brow. A rainbow-colored light covered his body and he disappeared. Inside the space of the heaven-defying bead, the orbs of light were still there. Wang Lin didn't even look at them as he moved forward. Shortly after, he arrived at where Situ Nan's soul was. Beside Situ Nan's giant soul were the souls of his parents. They emitted a gentle light, which calmed Wang Lin down a bit. He kowtowed toward his parents, and then, after staring at them for a long time, he turned towards Situ Nan's soul. Situ Nan sat there with his eyes closed. Although his body wasn't as dim as it was before, it wasn't much better. It could only be said that he recovered a little. Wang Lin looked at Situ Nan and muttered, "Situ Nan's soul is right here. Why did that person call himself Situ Nan? Could they have the same name? But then why did that person also know the underworld ascension method?" Wang Lin pondered for a bit before his expression suddenly turned serious. Situ once said that he fought with several cultivators from outside of Suzaku for the heaven-defying bead, and that his body was shattered. He had to give it up and hide his soul inside the heaven-defying bead to dodge that calamity. Wang Lin's eyes became brighter and brighter as he recalled the figure that was calling itself Situ Nan. It was formed by the black gas, and the black gas came from that arm. Could it be that Situ's body was taken and refined by someone, thus creating a fragment of a soul? Wang Lin boldly guessed in his heart but couldn't confirm it. After pondering for a long time, he let out a sigh and bitterly smiled. "Senior Situ, if that arm is really yours, then I really believe what you said before about you being the #1 expert on Suzaku." Wang Lin shook his head. In the end, he still wasn't sure about Situ Nan's claim. This became more so the longer he cultivated. After all, the #1 person on Suzaku was the one with the title of Suzaku. Unless Situ Nan was the Suzaku back then, he couldn't be the #1 expert. Also, Situ Nan had been inside the heaven-defying bead for so many years that even if he came back now, he would probably be inadequate. After pondering for a while, Wang Lin sighed again before leaving the heaven-defying bead. Country of Shui Yu. Inside the Holy Ice Temple sat an extremely ordinary-looking middle-aged man. Before him was a dark red tea set. Beside him stood two people, one male and one female. They both had heads full of white hair. The middle-aged man picked up a bamboo container and poured some tea leaves into a teapot. Then he put a cube of ice into the teapot. With the point of his finger, the ice melted and the water boiled. A wave of bitterness came out from the tea and filled the entire hall. The middle-aged man poured out all the water and put in another cube of ice. He then made it melt and boil again. This time, an exotic fragrance came out from the tea. It immediately washed away the bitterness that had filled the hall. The hall was enveloped in this aroma. The aroma was strong even outside the hall. I will never get tired of the smell of the Xianxia feather, even if I were to smell it every day. Unfortunately, this tea is too rare. I can only get a bit of it every now and then from Suzaku. You two have very good luck. Come here and try it out. The middle-aged man picked up the teapot and poured 3 cups. There was none left inside the pot after 3 cups. The two people quickly went up, picked up the cups, and drank. However, the old woman clearly had her mind on something else. Not bothering about how hot it was, she drank it all in one go and said, Sect Master, we have finished drinking tea, so please kill that Seng Niu. The middle-aged man's heart ached as he watched the old woman waste the tea and said, that Seng Niu is a nobody. If it wasn't tea for the fact that Suzaku sent out a message telling people to not mess with him, someone would have already killed him. The old woman raised her head and said, but he dared to take one of Red Butterfly's arms. Remember, Red Butterfly is the hope of Shui Yu. Sect Master, you were only able to reach the soul transformation stage because of her. As for the old man, he lowered his head and silently drank the tea. The middle-aged man's eyes became cold, and he slowly said to the old woman, I didn't forget, and I don't need you to remind me. The old woman pondered for a long time and said, I am still going to ask Sect Master to act. The middle-aged man picked up the cup, took a sip, and said, this Seng Niu has a thunder toad, a pair of bells, a small flag that can create countless restrictions, and in addition to all that, Liao Fan was also able to confirm that Seng Niu knows the underworld ascension cultivation method. These things aren't even that important. What's most important is that Seng Niu has a small flag that contains an aura that can destroy everything. The old woman was shocked and said, it seems Sect Master has been investigating this person. The middle-aged man nodded and said, how could I not pay attention to someone who caught the eyes of Mount Suzaku and was ordered to fight Red Butterfly? The title of Suzaku must belong to Red Butterfly. How could I let someone else have it? I let Liao Fan go with my treasures and was able to learn a few things. The old woman respectfully lowered her head and no longer said anything. The middle-aged man took another sip and slowly said, right now is not the time to kill him. We will have to wait until after his battle with Red Butterfly. At that time, no matter if he wins or loses, I'll personally act to kill him. This person is also very good at escaping. I got news from my friends at the Giant Demon Clan that their star compass might be in his hands as well. With that compass, once he opens a spatial rift and enters the void, no one but late-stage soul transformation cultivators will be able to catch him. The old woman frowned. She raised her head and asked, Sect Master means? The middle-aged man blandly said, if we want to kill him, we must succeed in one try. If I were to act, he would definitely run. So once the fight starts, I'll place down a formation to stop him from ripping open space, and also ask the Giant Demon Clan to help. With 2 soul transformation cultivators, no matter how powerful he is only a soul formation cultivator. If I am going to act, then I'll make sure I succeed. The respect on the old woman's face became even stronger. At this moment, the old man put down the cup and asked, aren't we overdoing it a bit for a mere mid-stage soul formation cultivator? The middle-aged man faintly smiled and asked, do you know what his domain is? Oh, the old man raised his head. According to Red Butterfly, this person's domain is life and death, the reincarnation cycle. Someone who can comprehend this kind of domain can be underestimated, even if he is only at the soul formation stage. The middle-aged man's eyes revealed a hint of regret. The old woman began to ponder and let out a sigh. The reason she wanted to kill Seng Niu was because back when Red Butterfly was young, she checked Red Butterfly's future. In her future, Red Butterfly would have to face a calamity. She was worried that this calamity was Seng Niu. Time rolled by, and in the blink of an eye, 5 years passed. Zhou Ru was now 10 years old. The little girl had grown a lot, but her personality was much more wild now. She had already lost interest in feeding the elder sister on the pagoda long ago. Although she would occasionally think about it, she no longer tried to feed her. Her tracks covered almost all of the nearby mountain ranges. Although she was small, she was very bold. All of the tigers and wild beasts were often harassed by her. Of course, with her ability, it was impossible to scare tigers and wild beasts. Tai Yan came over 4 years ago. He was on the edge of reaching the soul formation stage. However, he still couldn't cross that line in the Cloud Sky sect, so he decided to give up everything again to follow Wang Lin. With him accompanying her, little Zhou Ru became very arrogant and had fun times playing around every day. Wang Lin spent the last 5 years solidifying his foundation and attempting to break through to the mid-stage of soul formation. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't advance. Wang Lin knew that he had reached a bottleneck. If he couldn't break through, then his cultivation would forever be stuck here. The amount challengers had decreased a lot within these 5 years, but the fame of Seng Niu had only increased. He became a popular topic of conversation among a lot of cultivators. Today was the day of the 10-year appointment with Suzaku to fight with Red Butterfly. Half a year ago, a messenger from Suzaku came and set down a transfer array outside the valley. This transfer array could only be used once, but it could send him across the plain to the country of Suzaku. Feng Yushan respectfully stood outside the valley. He arrived 10 days ago to give Wang Lin the challenge letter according to the agreement 10 years ago. During these 10 days, Wang Lin was still pondering if he should go to this fight or not. Suzaku still hadn't held him accountable for what happened back then. Wang Lin felt like there had to be a catch here. He guessed that it was very possible that Suzaku wanted to accept him as a core disciple, just like Red Butterfly back then. This was the reason for this battle. Not only would the old monsters of Suzaku see this, but all of Suzaku would know of it. After all, Red Butterfly was too famous. The four-sect alliance was destroyed and Shui Yu was forcibly raised to rank 5 for her. This kind of thing had never happened before in Suzaku's history. As a result, most cultivators knew Red Butterfly's name. Sang Niu suddenly appeared by stepping on Red Butterfly, making him even more famous. Now the battle between the two of them had become the center of attention for everyone on the planet. Whoever wins between the two will receive great fortune. This was known to almost everyone. How could Wang Lin not understand? He knew that those old masters in Suzaku wanted to see who would be the winner between the two of them. If he were at the soul transformation stage, or the late stage of soul formation when he took Red Butterfly's arm, he would definitely been have killed. But he just happened to be at the early stage of soul formation and caught the eye of some big shot. Thus he was given these years as a cushion. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he made up his mind. I forgot to say, the latest 3 chapters are all 4,000-word major chapters. Is Leo that kind? So this is the Moon God. Is it the like button for the VIDEO? Do you all also start the VIDEO? Chapter 360, the 10-year appointment. Joru was riding on top of a black tiger with a willow branch in her hand. While she was hitting the tiger's head with the branch, she was also secretly looking at Wang Lin. The tiger didn't dare to become angry as it walked around the mountain with his head lowered. "Little White, look up!" Joru stared at the tiger. The tiger growled softly and obediently raised his head. "Bow!" The tiger lowered its head. "Look up." She did this more than 10 times, but the tiger was completely used to it. He only hoped that the little ancestor on his back was happy and would one day release him like the black bear that was released a while ago. He didn't dare to resist. Not to mention the young man, even the old man was someone he couldn't mess with. He wasn't an ordinary tiger, but a demonic tiger who had cultivated for many years. The young man gave off no aura and felt like a mortal. However, he was even more scared of this young man because he saw cultivators far more powerful than the old man being respectful to this young man a few days ago. As a result, with his intelligence, he knew that he couldn't afford to anger this person. This was why he would do everything the little ancestor on his back asked. In truth, he felt very lucky. He had seen how miserably the bear had been bullied by the little ancestor. He had never seen a black bear that could walk on his hands or use chopsticks to eat, or a black bear that could use its claws to give massages. Every time he thought of this, he would shiver and be even more afraid of the little ancestor on his back. He was a noble demonic tiger, so there was no way he would do those things, but simply raising and lowering his head were things he could still accept. Wang Lin sat under the pagoda looking at the bullied tiger and faintly smiled. This tiger had cultivated for 300 years, but only had the cultivation level of a foundation establishment cultivator. Once he was seen by Joru, she ordered Tai Yan to capture him. She named him Little White. "Fellow cultivator Sang Niu, the 10-year agreement is up. I am here under orders from Mount Suzaku to give you the challenge letter." Feng Yushan's voice came in from outside the valley. Wang Lin's gaze shifted from Joru to outside the valley. After a while, he stood up. Tai Yan. Tai Yan awakened from his cultivation. He stood up and respectfully arrived before Wang Lin. Wang Lin said to Tai Yan, "I need to go to Suzaku. I don't know for how long, but at most 8 years. During this time, take care of little Joru for me." Joru wasn't looking at Wang Lin, but her ears moved. She immediately grabbed the fur on Little White's head and said, "Bad uncle, bad uncle." Every time she said it, she would grab Little White's fur. Although a 10-year-old didn't have much strength, Little White still felt some pain when she grabbed his fur. After all, that fur was closest to his skin. He couldn't get angry though, so he could only let out some soft growls. Taiyan nodded. He hesitated for a bit and said, "Benefactor, Suzaku is the #1 country on the planet and is filled with countless experts. You have to be careful." When he started following Wang Lin after giving up everything again, he went from calling Wang Lin master to calling him benefactor. Wang Lin had helped him get on the path to the soul formation stage. To him, this was almost as valuable as his life. Wang Lin nodded and said, "I'll leave the pagoda here and open up the domain. No one but you and Zhou Run will be able to get within 50 kilometers of it. You have to take good care of little Ru during this time." Taiyan quickly nodded. "Benefactor can relax. I'll make sure Lady Ru is safe." Wang Lin pondered a bit and then slapped his bag of holding. A ray of white light came out and turned into the Thunder Toad. After Zhou Ru saw the Thunder Toad, her eyes immediately lit up. The tiger went soft and almost collapsed. He could feel a very powerful demonic aura coming from the toad. This aura immediately made his skin crawl and made him respect the people inside this valley even more. Even if he had to walk on his front legs, eat with chopsticks, or give the little ancestor a massage, he wouldn't dare to complain. Wang Lin squatted and softly said, "Little Ru, come here." Zhou Ru pouted and ignored Wang Lin, but after thinking for a bit, she hit the tigeress head and stuck her tongue out at Wang Lin. "Bad uncle. Going out to play by yourself and not taking little Ru Wang Lin smiled. Zhou Ru became most mischievous as she grew up, the complete opposite of Li Muan. If it wasn't for the fact that he could clearly feel Li Muan inside her body, he would wonder if he had the wrong person. In these recent years, all of the powerful beasts in the nearby mountains had been bullied by her. However, she only bullied them but never hurt them. In fact, she would often beg Wang Lin to help some of the injured animals. Whenever Wang Lin looked at Zhou Ru, his heart ached. To make her stay by his side, he took away her childhood of playing with other children at a young age. All she had were these wild beasts to play with. Was he too selfish? However, these thoughts only appeared for a moment before he discarded them. He wasn't a selfless person, and he didn't feel comfortable leaving Zhou Ru with others. Only by having her next to him could he feel like nothing would go wrong. Wang Lin smiled. "Ru, be good. Uncle is only going out for a few days. When I come back, I'll catch an even bigger tiger for you." Zhou Ru was still a kid, so she immediately stopped being angry at Wang Lin after hearing this. She then curiously asked, "How big? Bigger than Little White?" Wang Lin nodded. "Bigger than Little White." Zhou Ru cocked her head and thought for a moment. Then she nodded and said, "Okay, but you have to come back quickly." Wang Lin rubbed Zhou Ru's head and sincerely said, "I'll return quickly." "Little Ru, you have to be good when I am not here. You can be more than 50 kilometers from the pagoda. You understand?" Zhou Ru nodded and said, "Dante, forget about my big tiger." Wang Lin faintly smiled, stood up, looked at Taiyan, and began to ponder. It was not that he didn't trust Taiyan. Wang Lin understood Taiyan very well after all the time Taiyan had followed him. However, Zhou Ru was simply too important to him, so that simple trust just wasn't enough. This was why he left the Thunder Toad. With the toad here, it would stop Taiyan if anything abnormal happened. In truth, Wang Lin was being a bit too careful. In these years, Taiyan had given up everything. All he had left was the hope of reaching the soul formation stage. Since Wang Lin gave that to him, Wang Lin was his savior. In addition, he watched Zhou Ru grow up from a baby and had already become attached to her. Even if Wang Lin hadn't asked, he would ensure Zhou Ru's safety. Also, Li Muan had made many pills that helped him a lot. Wang Lin told the Thunder Toad to protect Zhou Ru. The Thunder Toad expanded its belly as a response and began to bask in the sun. Wang Lin completely trusted the Thunder Toad. Sometimes life was just like this. Beasts are more trustworthy than people. On top of all of this, Wang Lin had one last line of defense, which was his original body. With his original body here, all dangers would be resolved. This was the real reason he felt safe leaving Zhou Ru. However, unless he had to, he didn't want to reveal his original body. This was his true ace. It was more well hidden than anything else he owned. After taking care of all these issues, Wang Lin walked out of the valley. He didn't know if what he was going to face next would be his rise or his fall. However, with 500 years of experience, his heart was very determined. He wouldn't be easily swayed. He will continue to walk down the path of cultivation forever. Joru raised her head and looked at Wang Lin. She grabbed Little White's fur. Little White was very smart and immediately began to run to catch up to Wang Lin. Wang Lin turned around. Run jumped off Little White and said, "Uncle, squat down." Wang Lin smiled while squatting and said, "Are you reminding Uncle to not forget the big tiger?" Joru shook her head and kissed Wang Lin's forehead. "Uncle, you have to hurry back. Ru'er will miss you." Wang Lin stared at Joru. After a while, he nodded and said, "Uncle will return very soon." With that, he took a deep breath, stood up, and walked out of the valley. Joru looked at Wang Lin's figure and said, "Uncle left and won't play with me anymore. Little White, you will have to play with me every day. Understand?" Little White's body quivered and he secretly complained. He let out a soft growl as a response. Joru's eyes became watery, and tears flowed down her cheeks. In these past 7 years, she had never been apart from Wang Lin, so they had already developed deep bonds with each other. There was a warm feeling developing in her heart. This was the feeling of attachment and not wanting to lose him. There were a lot of coincidences in this world. Where Joru stood was exactly where that drop of tear from Li Muan fell. That tear from back then might have created a field of sadness and sorrow, but right now that teardrop had brought about a field of love and attachment. Joru wiped away her tears and said to the tiger, "Little White, handstand." The tiger immediately let out a sad growl. 1 month before Wang Lin and Red Butterfly's battle, a big event happened in the giant demon clan. One of the ancestors absorbed enough of the celestial jade brought back by Chi Hu and reached the soul transformation stage, becoming the first soul transformation giant demon clan member. It's been a long time since wishing for likes on the VIDEO. The little pig wishing for the like button for the VIDEO support. Chapter 361, Country of Suzaku. This was a big mark in the history of the giant demon clan. From this moment on, they were no longer a rank 4 cultivation country but rank 5. Suzaku attached great importance to this, so one of the ascendants of Suzaku personally met the soul transformation ancestor of the giant demon clan. In truth, there had been rumors that the giant demon clan had a soul transformation cultivator, but no one could confirm it. However, the chances were high because the young master of the giant demon clan, Chi Hu, had come back with a lot of celestial jade. When the ancestor used his soul transformation cultivation to apply for the right to become a rank 5 cultivation country, the rumor was confirmed. The giant demon clan wasn't native to Suzaku. They had moved here. Chi Hu was able to battle a late-stage soul formation at the mid-stage of soul formation, so it was clear how powerful they were. The innate-born superpower of the giant demon clan undergoes a change when they reach the soul transformation stage. The fact that an ascendant from Suzaku personally came to increase their country's rank showed how powerful it was. It has to be said that Suzaku normally only sends out a late-stage soul transformation cultivator to manage this process. The promotion of the giant demon clan was like a drop of ink in water. There wouldn't be much change at first, but then it will begin to spread everywhere. None of this had anything to do with Wang Lin, though. He walked out of the valley and went into the formation with Feng Yushan and company. Right before he disappeared, he turned around to look at the valley. The country of Suzaku was on the largest continent on planet Suzaku. It was named the Suzaku continent. There were only 4 cultivation countries on this continent. The other 3 were all rank cultivation countries, and they were the 3 most powerful rank cultivation countries. The 3 countries were Green Dragon, Thousand Fantasy, and Pilu. In the middle of the continent, and taking up 2/3 of the continent, was where the country of Suzaku was located. Even mortals of Suzaku were higher ranked than regular mortals because they were people of Suzaku. There were a total of 3 sects in the country of Suzaku. They were the Heavenly Jade sect, the Earth Soul sect, and the Immortal Path sect. Each of the sects had 1 ascendant cultivator. Combined with the late-stage ascendant cultivator at Mount Suzaku, who held the title of Suzaku, they were the main force of planet Suzaku. There were countless cultivation families under the 3 sects. They relied on the 3 sects for support, and became a network that sent large amounts of disciples to the 3 sects. A beam suddenly fell from the sky onto an altar in Suzaku, causing waves of spiritual energy to spread out. Red Butterfly was sitting on a lotus leaf in the back mountain of the Heavenly Jade sect. She suddenly opened her eyes and looked toward the beam that had fallen from the sky. Red Butterfly's eyes became cold and she whispered, "He came." Wang Lin slowly appeared on the altar, and Feng Yushan appeared after that. Feng Yushan let out a sigh of relief. Since Seng Niu had come, he could go report it to Mount Suzaku. There was one more person on the altar beside Wang Lin and Feng Yushan. This person was wearing a purple dress with a picture of a purple butterfly on a lily. She was wearing a blue veil that was clear and transparent like magic. Her eyes gave people a feeling of elegance, her nose was straight, and she had small, red lips. She quietly stood there with her gaze on Wang Lin. After Feng Yushan saw the woman, he quickly and respectfully said, "Greetings, third elder apprentice sister." The woman gently nodded her pretty little head and asked, "Is this fellow cultivator Seng Niu?" Wang Lin looked at the woman. He wasn't affected by how beautiful she was. He clasped his hands and said, "I am Seng Niu." Fellow cultivator Sang, this little girl is a disciple of the Immortal S-Path sect. My surname is White, and my name is Snow. The woman smiled. Her skin was as white as snow, and 2 strands of her 3 feet long black hair were draped over her chest. The remainder of her hair was coiled into a bun on the top of her head. "Teacher ordered me to wait for you here, and then bring you to him." Wang Lin's expression remained calm. He looked at the woman and asked, "Immortal S-Path sect?" White Snow nodded and said, "Mount Suzaku has set the date for the battle between fellow cultivator Sang and Red Butterfly. It will take place half a month from now. At that time, many messengers of the other cultivation countries will come to watch. Until then, my Immortal S-Path sect is in charge of housing fellow cultivator." Wang Lin pondered a bit and then nodded. White Snow faintly smiled and jumped off the altar. A ray of white light flew over and held White Snow in the air. It was a pure white crane. After Wang Lin landed on the white crane, it let out a cry, flapped its wings, and flew into the distance. Sun Yushan looked enviously at the white crane before jumping off the altar and flying toward Mount Suzaku. White Snow would occasionally look at Wang Lin. Throughout these past several years, Sang the U.S. name had been very big. After seeing Wang Lin, she couldn't help but be disappointed. She was sure that this Sang Yu would have peerless talent, but looking at him now, he looked extremely normal. After a long pause between the two, White Snow softly asked, "Fellow cultivator Sang, how certain are you in the fight against Red Butterfly?" Wang Lin withdrew his gaze from looking at the country of Suzaku and shook his head. "Not certain at all." White Snow was stunned, but she smiled. Fellow cultivator Sang doesn't have to be modest. Wang Lin didn't bother with the woman and carefully looked what was below him. He carefully remembered the layout of the area. His map Jade only had a very vague description of Suzaku. Although Wang Lin secretly thought that Suzaku was trying to recruit him as a core disciple, he was still on guard. Wang Lin pondered a bit and asked, "Fellow cultivator White Snow, what sects are in Suzaku?" White Snow's voice was very alluring. After her explanation, Wang Lin had a rough understanding of Suzaku. Junior apprentice sister Red Butterfly is a disciple of the Heavenly Jade sect. With that, White Snow let out a sigh and looked towards Sang Niu. From what she heard from her teacher, it sounded like after the battle, Mount Suzaku wanted this person to join her sect. Wang Lin's eyes were calm, and he didn't speak. The speed of the white crane wasn't fast, but the ride was very smooth. As it passed by various mountains, Wang Lin secretly remembered them all. Suzaku was filled with spiritual energy. It was an aspect which other countries couldn't compare with at all. Along the way, Wang Lin had already passed by 10 spirit veins. It was because of these spirit veins that there was so much spiritual energy inside of Suzaku. While flying, Wang Lin's eyes suddenly became serious as he looked into the distance. In the distance was a mountain that went into the clouds. It looked like a celestial mountain. The white crane didn't fly toward the mountain, and instead went around it. Although his expression was calm, his heart was shocked. White Snow whispered, "That is where the Heavenly Jade sect is located. Because of the formation, you can see it." Just at this moment, a red figure descended from the mountain and stood in a white cloud. That person was looking over at their direction. Wang Lin's eyes became cold as he stared at the red figure, but he remained silent. The red figure slowly disappeared as the white crane flew away. Red Butterfly stood outside the Heavenly Jade sect as she looked at Wang Lin slowly disappearing. Her eyes became even colder as wind blew by and caused her empty sleeve to flutter. He indeed came. Red Butterfly turned around and disappeared back into the heavenly jade sect. Wang Lin stood upon the white crane and coldly looked at White Snow. This woman had especially picked this route. She must be had her own agenda. Not long after, the white crane flew into a mountain that looked like a very long dragon. The crane flew through layers of clouds and into the depths of the mountain. Wang Lin stepped off the crane. After landing, White Snow whispered, "Fellow cultivators saying, this is not the Immortal S Path sect, but my teacher S personal immortal cave. Teacher is currently cultivating. Pick any of the rooms from the northern 3 rows. Teacher will meet you once he is ready." With that, she clasped her hands at Wang Lin and disappeared among the houses. Wang Lin knew that he couldn't carelessly spread out his divine sense inside Suzaku, or else he would attract a lot of trouble. He followed White Snow S-words and walked toward the northern buildings. Along the way, he encountered many servants. All of them had numb expressions. None of them even looked at Wang Lin as they quickly passed by. Not long after, Wang Lin arrived at the northern end and saw the 3 rows of extravagant rooms and picked one. The rooms had everything already prepared for him. Wang Lin sat down in the room and began to ponder. Ever since he entered Suzaku, he had this feeling of danger. Although it was very faint, it still existed. Wang Lin knew that with just his cultivation, there were many people in Suzaku who could kill him. Any soul transformation cultivator could kill him. Suzaku's attitude toward him was very weird to him. It was strange that someone was sent to receive him. It seemed that White Snow's teacher would greet him soon. After pondering for a while, Wang Lin closed his eyes and began to cultivate. At dusk, the room was very dim because there was no light inside. As time passed, it became even darker. In the dark, Wang Lin suddenly felt a sense of loneliness. He looked around at the foreign room, inside this foreign sect, and in this foreign country. He couldn't find any sense of belonging. Wang Lin let out a sigh, and was just about to light a candle when he suddenly looked up at the door and knocking began to echo in the room. Knock, knock, knock. The year of the dragon is approaching. Leo's year is coming fast, fervently shouting for the like button for the VIDEO, wishing to be drowned in happiness by the likes for the VIDEO. Chapter 362, Battle with Red Butterfly. Wang Lin said, "Come in." Without any sound, the door opened and a boy wearing black entered the room. He was carrying a tray of fruits in his hands. After entering, he didn't even look at Wang Lin as he placed down the tray and then turned to leave. Wang Lin said, "Wait a moment." The boy stopped, turned around, and looked at Wang Lin. Although the room was dim, he could still clearly make out what the boy looked like. The boy was very young, only about 13 or 14 years old. Without waiting for Wang Lin to ask, the boy opened his mouth and pointed at it. Inside his mouth, he only had half of his tongue. Wang Lin was stunned and didn't speak. The boy gently smiled at Wang Lin before turning around and leaving, gently closing the door on his way out. For some reason, Wang Lin had a creepy feeling about this immortal cave. Looking at the fruits on the tray, he pondered for a bit and before going back to cultivating. His right hand was still on his bag of holding so he would have time to resist in case any danger showed up. Time passed by, and in the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. In these 3 days, only the boy ever came to his room. On the morning of the 2nd day, he went outside but found that all of the servants were missing half of their tongues, making them unable to speak. In addition to this, most of the area was covered by powerful restrictions which sealed them from going too far. Wang Lin wouldn't be able to break any of them in a short period of time. There was something strange about this place. Wang Lin pondered for a bit until he just gave up on thinking about this. He focused on cultivating to keep himself at the best condition for the fight against Red Butterfly. 10 days passed without any distractions. On this day, while he was cultivating, he suddenly opened his eyes and saw a middle-aged man sitting before him. The middle-aged man poured a cup of tea and looked at Wang Lin. This person was good-looking but not extremely handsome. He didn't have a beard, but there was stubble on his face. His eyes were bright but seemed to be somewhat covered in mist. Although he didn't speak, he emitted a sense of majesty. Wang Lin's eyes were calm. He wasn't surprised by the fact that this person was able to enter without him knowing. There were many people with cultivation levels higher than Wang Lin's here. He wasn't a boy who had just started cultivating, so he wouldn't easily be shocked. The middle-aged man took a sip of tea and gently tapped the table with his finger. He didn't say a word. Wang Lin also pondered and didn't speak. The room was completely silent. This was a very scary kind of silence. A sense of pressure began to build with each tap of the middle-aged man's finger. If Wang Lin hadn't reached the soul formation stage, he wouldn't have been able to withstand this. Even if he were still at the early stage of soul formation like he was before he entered the celestial realm, he would had trouble. However, Wang Lin was very calm right now. After a very long time, the middle-aged man stood up and, without even looking at Wang Lin, left the room. He hadn't said a single word the entire time. After he left, Wang Lin stood up and walked over to where the middle-aged man previously was. There was some tea spilled on the table in the shape of 2 words. Lose, die. Wang Lin pondered a bit. He wiped the table with his hand and the words disappeared. He looked at the darkness outside the window, and his eyes lit up. The middle-aged man must have been at least at the soul transformation stage. He was probably White Snow S-Master. The 2 words left by this person were very clear. If he loses the battle against Red Butterfly, the only road that would be left for him was death. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He then closed his eyes and began to cultivate. A few days later, the day of the big battle arrived. It was very lively around the giant altar in Suzaku. All of the cultivators that had arrived were eagerly awaiting this big battle. Suzaku had announced this battle between Wang Lin and Red Butterfly 10 years ago. This battle caught the eyes of a lot of cultivators. Although the 2 people battling were only at the soul formation stage, there was a huge difference in their social statuses. Red Butterfly was the genius of Shuei Yu and was the #1 genius in Suzaku. She was able to reach the late stage of soul formation in only 100 years, and was the #1 candidate to reach the ascendant stage. Sang Niu was of unknown origin but was able to obtain a rain cauldron. Then he took an arm from Red Butterfly and instantly became famous. If that was just the case, it wouldn't have attracted so much attention, but this Sang Niu was only at the early stage of soul formation when he entered the celestial realm. He was able to fight against a late-stage soul formation cultivator when he was at the early stage and even took an arm from her. As a result, he became a legend. Now, it was the second battle between the 2, which attracted the attention of everyone. Red Butterfly was standing on the right side of the altar. She was wearing a blue court dress with a dark purple flower embroidered on the edge of the dress. It was very simple and clean. Her hair flowed down like a waterfall with only a ribbon tying it together. However, the gentle breeze that would cause her empty sleeve to flutter put a blemish on the almost painting-like Red Butterfly. Red Butterfly's beauty was like her talent. It was filled with arrogance and ruthlessness. Around the perimeter of the altar were rings of white light with chairs placed on them. There were already many people sitting there, men and women, young and old. All of them were various messengers of different cultivation countries. Although there weren't 100 people, it was very close. Although there were almost 100 people, there wasn't any noise. These people sat on the outer ring. On the inner ring there were only 4 chairs, and there were 4 people sitting on them. These 4 people were all white-haired old men. At this moment, a white crane came from the distance. On the back of the crane stood a young man wearing white. He was standing up straight. His hair was tied with a purple ribbon, and although he looked average, he gave off a manly aura. Beside him stood a woman in purple. Her looks weren't at all inferior to Red Butterfly's. The crane arrived at the altar and let out a cry. The white-robed young man jumped off and landed on the altar. He was Wang Lin. Red Butterfly lowered her head to look at her empty sleeve before raising her head. Her eyes became cold. There was also a deep sense of hatred hidden in her eyes. As the Heaven's chosen daughter, until she met Wang Lin, she had never lost. Not only was Wang Lin the first person to ever defeat her, he even took one of her arms. If Wang Lin had beaten her in a straight-up fight, although she would hate him, her hatred would not be this strong. But back then, Wang Lin acted when she was at her weakest and tried to destroy her Tao heart. In all these years, her cultivation level hadn't moved. This was all because of Wang Lin. Only by killing him could her Tao heart recover. Wang Lin's expression remained the same as he calmly looked at Red Butterfly. One of the old men sitting in the inner 4 chairs coldly looked at Wang Lin and Red Butterfly and said, "I am the elder of Mount Suzaku, Gong Sumpo, and I'll be the judge for this fight." His right hand formed a seal and then pointed forth. A door of light suddenly appeared on the altar before them. "Go inside. That is where your battlefield will be. The old man closed his eyes and no longer spoke. Without a word, Red Butterfly walked into the door of light and disappeared. Wang Lin's eyes were calm as he carefully looked at the door of light and walked inside. After the both of them entered the door of light, it immediately expanded to cover the entire altar. Inside the door was a deserted mountain range. People could see what was going on through the door of light. After Wang Lin entered the door of light, he was able to detect that this door of light was a transfer array. Where he appeared was a deserted mountain range. The surroundings were completely quiet and there was no light coming from the sky. An aura that would make you feel irritated filled the air. Giant and ancient oak trees grew everywhere. 10 feet away, a giant red python was coldly staring at Wang Lin and sticking its tongue out. A shout came from the sky. Seng Niu! Wang Lin flew into the sky to see a ray of red light charging toward him. Before she even arrived, a cold aura had already spread out. This cold aura condensed into small ice particles that gathered 100 feet away from Wang Lin into a giant ice sculpture. This giant ice sculpture was over 100 feet tall and was shaped like a person. Its face was expressionless as it swung its giant fist at Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he backed away. A flash of red light appeared on the head of the ice sculpture and Red Butterfly appeared. Her eyes were cold as she stared at Wang Lin and whispered something. A bright light appeared and turned into an ice rose before her. She made up her mind to not have a long fight with Seng Niu. She would use the quickest method to kill this person. As the ice giant swung out its fist, Red Butterfly plucked a rose petal and sent it forth. The petal swayed back and forth like a boat on the rocky sea. Wang Lin snorted. He waved his right hand and the restriction flag appeared in his grasp. Restriction gas came out in the shape of dragons. They intertwined and fused into a giant fist that met the fist of the ice giant. Bang! The shockwave caused many of the trees below them to fall over. Even the python was knocked onto the ground. It was squirming due to the many wounds on its body. All of the wounds were caused by the vibrations of the shockwave. The huge impact caused the ice giant to take a step back. Cracks had appeared on his fist, and pieces of ice were flying everywhere. Wang Lin's hand shook. The fist formed by the restriction shattered, and as the vibrations reached the restriction flag, it caused cracks to appear on it. This is a treasure that my country of Shuiyu has been refining for 500 years. Ice God! Seng Niu, you will die for sure. Red Butterfly's eyes became even colder as her hand moved, and the floating rose petal suddenly began to change. 6,000 words in a major chapter, wishing for sharing, for likes on the video. You are listening to a completely free audiobook on the Leo Audio YouTube channel. If you enjoy the story, please like the video to motivate the channel. Support Leo with a cup of coffee through the description link or on the screen. If you want to hear any other stories, just comment and let Leo know. Thank you very much for watching the video. Chapter 363, Soul Lasher. Thin lines flew off the petal and formed a giant net that flew toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he waved the restriction flag, causing a screen of black fog to appear. Then he took out the celestial sword and swung at the net. The sword energy went through the black fog and landed on the flower petal. Bang! Cracks immediately appeared on the petal, but it didn't shatter. Countless threads from the flower petal covered the sky as it arrived before Wang Lin. Red Butterfly's became even colder as she plucked another flower petal. She threw it forward and formed a seal with left hand as it flew. Then she pointed at the petal and it immediately grew many times larger. It was still heading toward Wang Lin. Red Butterfly didn't stop but plucked another flower petal. She bit her tongue and spat out some blood. The blood fell on the petal and 9 sword symbols made of blood appeared on the petal. 9 rays of sword energy appeared and shot toward Wang Lin. 3 flower petals. Seng Niu, I want to see if you die or not. Red Butterfly slapped the ice giant under her. The ice giant let out a roar and swung its fist right behind the 9 rays of sword energy. For every step it took, there would be a giant hole left on the ground. Countless trees fell over, and the vibrations caused many cracks to appear on the ground. This could be considered one of the most dangerous battles in Wang Lin's life. He didn't want to use the war chariot unless he had to. After all, this was Suzaku. There was bound to be many people watching. Exposing too many of his secrets wouldn't be good for him. Facing the net coming at him, Wang Lin let out a roar and swung the celestial sword like crazy, forcibly creating an opening in the net. Wang Lin quickly charged out from opening and opened his mouth to spit out a black ray of light. It quickly changed into a giant black stamp that slammed into the giant petal. The black stamp trembled before it was wrapped by the petal and turned into a puddle of black water. Wang Lin's face was pale. He used the moment the black stamp stopped the petal to teleport away. Just at this moment, the 9 rays of sword energy silently arrived. They moved as fast as lightning. Wang Lin quickly touched his bag of holding and 2 bells appeared. They collided with the sword energy, creating a sound wave. The 9 rays of sword energy paused for a moment under the effect of the sound wave but then continued toward Wang Lin. With that pause, the 2 bells shattered, and the pieces formed a suit of armor around Wang Lin. He let out a roar and teleported again. This time he was charging toward Red Butterfly. However, just when he reappeared, the ice giant's fist arrived before him. This punch was much faster than the one before. It landed on Wang Lin's body in almost an instant. Unveil eye. Wang Lin's body was sent flying. The 9 rays of sword energy stabbed into his body as he flew through the air. Then the giant flower petal quickly wrapped around him, leaving no opening. Killing intent filled Red Butterfly's eyes, and she shouted, "Sang Niu, accept your death!" Her left hand formed a seal and pointed at the petal. Soon, sounds of explosions came from within the petal. However, just at this moment, a ray of black energy leaked out from the flower petal. Red Butterfly's expression changed when a huge ray of black sword energy that felt like it could destroy the world came out from within the petal. The petal was split in half and Wang Lin slowly walked out. The ribbon that was tying his hair had broken. His hair flowed in the air without any wind and his eyes were filled with intense coldness. He looked at Red Butterfly like he was looking at a dead person. There were many cracks on his armor, and behind him the 9 rays of sword energy all shattered. Wang Lin's voice was low as he slowly said, "Red Butterfly, the battle has just started. What happened just now was only a warm-up." Red Butterfly stared at Wang Lin and pointed at the rose with 6 remaining petals. She was about to use a spell. "Red Butterfly, look at this." Wang Lin revealed an evil smile as he took out a cocoon-like stone that had many Tao symbols on it. Wang Lin's right hand hit it, and the symbols on it began to glow. Red Butterfly's face became pale as a small amount of black gas emerged from her forehead. She shouted, "Sang Niu, what is that?" "It's just an arm." Wang Lin's expression remained the same as he hit the stone. Pieces of rocks fell off, revealing a dark and withered arm. Holding the arm in his hand, he let out an evil smile. "Red Butterfly, is this arm familiar to you?" Red Butterfly's body trembled as she stared at the arm. She then suddenly turned toward Wang Lin. The coldness in her eyes had reached its limit. "Sang Niu, you villain." Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he laughed out loud. Then his eyes suddenly darkened and said, "I am a villain. Back in the celestial realm there was no hatred between us. I'd had never messed with you. Yet you tried to kill me multiple times. Even now, I still don't know why you wanted to kill me. Why can't I resist if you tried to kill me?" Red Butterfly's face was gloomy. Without any hesitation, she pointed at the rose and all 6 petals scattered. Wang Lin let out a snort. Without any hesitation, he slapped his bag of holding and a black flag appeared in his hand. This was the flag that was only missing one restriction to summon divine retribution lightning. His left hand moved before him. A restriction appeared and he placed it on the flag. The restriction shook and a blinding light shined from the flag. Red Butterfly's expression changed. Her hand quickly formed seals and she chanted a very complex spell. The 6 petals quickly flew out and turned into 6 women wearing red. However, a powerful force was being released from the restriction flag. This force pushed everything away. Wang Lin allowed himself to be pushed away and let the restriction flag float in the sky. As for the 6 petals that had turned into 6 women, they were also stopped in their tracks. They were unable to go forward. At this moment, rumbling sounds suddenly came from the sky. Red clouds covered the sky like the heavens were going to collapse. Everyone watching the fight from outside was shocked. The 4 old men sitting in the inner circle all suddenly opened their eyes. Their gazes were locked onto the red clouds. Divine retribution. Gong Sumpo's eyes lit up. 6 returned to 1. Red Butterfly's expression changed as she quickly formed seals with her hand. The 6 women in red quickly fused with Red Butterfly. Behind her, 6 beautiful red figures appeared. Red clouds covered the sky. Wang Lin sneered as he pointed at the restriction flag. The restriction flag quickly turned into waves of restrictions that shot toward Red Butterfly. Just at this moment, with a huge bang, all of the red clouds gathered and a ray of red lightning descended. Its target was exactly where the restrictions were at. Red Butterfly quickly backed up, but Wang Lin had been keeping an eye on her. The moment she moved, he waved the celestial sword, and a ray of sword energy shot out at her. However, this sword energy wasn't T for Red Butterfly. It collided with the descending red lightning. Bang. With a loud bang, the sword energy collapsed. The red lightning paused for a moment before it continued to descend. Using this pause, Wang Lin shouted, "Restriction flag, scatter!" The restriction flag suddenly shook as more restriction gas poured out of it. This continued until the restriction flag turned to dust and disappeared. However, the restriction gas that came out arrived before Red Butterfly in almost an instant and hovered around her. Much of the gas had already entered the ice giant's body as well. Although the gas could do any damage, it could act as a beacon for the divine retribution lightning. The giant quickly stomped the ground. Every time it stomped, a lot of restriction gas would dissipate, but there was simply so much gas that it kept on entering the giant's body. Red Butterfly was about to teleport when her expression suddenly became ugly. The moment divine retribution arrives, all teleports are sealed. Red Butterfly, accept your death. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. At this moment, the red lightning arrived. The moment the restriction gas touched the lightning, it dissipated. The red lightning descended upon Red Butterfly, who was surrounded by restriction gas. Although all of this took a while to explain, it happened in the blink of an eye. Red Butterfly's face was pale and she clenched her teeth. The moment the red lightning arrived, the 6 figures behind her flew out. Explode! One of the red figures exploded the moment it touched the red lightning, but it was unable to stop the divine retribution lightning. Red Butterfly's voice cracked. Explode! Explode! Bang, bang, bang! The divine retribution lightning pierced through them like they were paper. One figure collapsed, another figure collapsed, and soon all 6 figures had collapsed. However, the power of the red lightning lowered a bit in these series of explosions. Without a word, Red Butterfly sank into the ice giant. The moment she disappeared into it, the red lightning struck the ice giant. The giant suddenly raised its head and let out a painful roar as many cracks appeared on its body. There was a red line moving within the ice giant. It wasn't T attacking the ice giant but moving to the remaining restriction gas in its body. In addition, there was the ghostly image of a whip that would glow. Every time it glowed, the power of the red lighting would weaken a bit. A pity. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he swung the celestial sword at the giant. He let out a roar as he directed a large ray of sword energy toward the ice giant. Generate now. The giant opened its mouth and shouted. However, the voice belonged to Red Butterfly. Soul Lasher. Just at this moment, the whip inside the ice giant glowed brightly, flew out from the chest of the giant, and struck Wang Lin. Fast, too fast. Wang Lin wasn't able to dodge at all. He coughed out blood and his body fell. However, his origin soul was knocked out of his body and flew far away. At this moment, the sword energy landed on the ice giant and its aura weakened a lot. A wound as thick as an arm went through its body. Nearly 3,800 words, already quite long. Day by day people say it's short, look at others. All are 2,000 words a chapter. Leo is that long, wouldn't you cast a like for Leo's video? Chapter 364, Fury of the Chariot. That whip was simply too fast. Wang Lin didn't have any time to react when his origin soul was whipped out of his body. As his soul flew backwards, he was shocked, and then pain started coming from all over his origin soul. This pain was like his heart was being pierced. This pain meant that his origin soul was about to be damaged. He didn't hesitate at all to use spiritual energy to stop himself. With one teleport, he went back into his body. Wang Lin opened eyes and quickly backed up. There was shock in his eyes. The attack from the giant just now was simply too strange. What kind of whip is that? Wang Lin's eyes sparkled as he stared at the ice giant. Luckily, Wang Lin's sword energy had landed on the giant, and the divine retribution lightning was still inside the ice giant. Due to these two factors, The ice giant wasn't able to attack Wang Lin while his origin soul was knocked out of his body. The situation would have turned very ugly for Wang Lin otherwise. Just as the sword energy landed on the ice giant's waist, the divine retribution lightning destroyed the last of the restriction gas and suddenly disappeared. The red clouds left as quickly as they arrived, and the sky returned to normal as if the red clouds had never appeared. The ice giant shook its body. Pieces of ice fell off it and landed on the ground. The giant was now only half of its original size at 50 feet. The wound on its waist quickly closed and soon disappeared. However, the image of the whip was still at its chest, releasing a demonic light. Without a word, Wang Lin turned around and escaped. That whip was simply too dangerous. If his origin soul were to get knocked away again and his body got destroyed, then even if he won, he will still have lost. Red Butterfly appeared once more on the head of the ice giant and shouted, "Xianxia, I want to see what you can still do." The ice giant that was now only half of its original size became more nimble than before. It got up from the ground, causing the earth to shake, and chased after Wang Lin. Wang Lin continued to run. Luckily, the battleground was very large, and he hadn't reached the boundary yet. He quickly took out a pill and consumed it to adjust his body as he flew. As for the ice giant behind him, he completely ignored it. Red Butterfly's expression was as cold as ice. She hated the person before her down to her bones. If it wasn't for the ice giant, she would have been killed the red lightning. This Sing and Yu had a treasure to call down divine retribution lightning. However, I don't believe he has two of them, or else he could have just used both right away. Even with the soul lasher, the ice giant won't be able to withstand two divine retribution lightning strikes. Red Butterfly's eyes were gloomy. She gave a command and the whip suddenly appeared in the ice giant's hand. Red Butterfly shouted, "Sing ni you, accept your death." The giant swung the whip in his hand. It moved even faster than lightning toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's expression changed. Although the whip's speed was quick, he had been on guard this whole time. As the whip was coming toward him, he disappeared with a teleport. He reappeared 1,000 feet away and coughed out blood. When he was teleporting away, the whip touched him. Although it didn't knock his origin soul out, it injured him. What an amazing whip treasure! Wang Lin took a deep breath and continued to escape. He took out a large amount of pills and devoured them to recover as much spiritual energy as possible. Red Butterfly's eyes were cold as she controlled the ice giant to chase Wang Lin in a mad pursuit. As Red Butterfly chased Wang Lin, she insulted him. "Xianxia, you are now running away like a homeless dog. Where is your dominating aura from back then?" Wang Lin laughed and said, "Red Butterfly, you haven't resolved the curse from that arm yet. You only suppressing it with your spiritual energy. This is true reason you used your most powerful treasure right at the start." Red Butterfly's expression became gloomy and she snorted. Every single time they met, she had never been able to beat Wang Lin in words, so she no longer spoke. She controlled the giant and whipped the air before them multiple times. After a while, Wang Lin recovered a bit of spiritual energy. His eyes lit up as he took out an item. It was Red Butterfly's arm. He chanted while his left hand formed seals and pointed at the arm. The arm glowed a demonic light as various symbols appeared on it. Wang Lin's left hand slapped the arm and he shouted, "Explode!" A black line immediately appeared on Red Butterfly's forehead. Her body trembled and her face became pale. She shouted, "Xianxia, if I don't kill you, then I am not called Red Butterfly." Wang Lin sneered and shouted, "Suppress it! I want to see how long you can suppress it. Explode! Explode! Explode!" The black line on Red Butterfly's forehead suddenly began to spread and soon covered Red Butterfly's beautiful face. You Red Butterfly coughed out black blood. She was indeed worried about the curse on her arm, which was why she wanted to end this battle as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. The battle went outside of her control. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he once more shouted, "Explode!" The arm in his hand immediately exploded. There was no longer any blood left inside, so it exploded into a cloud of black dust which spread out in all directions. The explosion of the arm activated all of the curses inside Red Butterfly's body. She coughed out another mouthful of black blood, and a dark aura covered her face. Wang Lin's body immediately stopped. He no longer ran. He used this moment to throw out the beast trap, and with a bang the war chariot arrived. The beast spirit immediately came out with a roar. Its bloodshot eyes stared at Wang Lin and the giant. The current Wang Lin couldn't worry about exposing too much. The most important matter right now was winning. After the chariot appeared, it would take time to activate. Wang Lin held the celestial sword in his hand and swung down. The sword energy created a sonic boom as it flew out and smashed into the ice giant. Bang! The ice giant stumbled back several steps as a wound appeared on its body. Red Butterfly's eyes were closed. She was concentrating all her attention to suppress the curse. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He went up and swung down again. Bang! After the bang, the ice giant backed up even more. Red Butterfly struggled to open her eyes and stared viciously at Wang Lin before spitting out a word. The ice giant's eyes released a demonic light. Red Butterfly had given up on controlling the ice giant and was using all her power to suppress the curse. The giant's body began to move. It swung its fist in the image of the whip immediately appeared. Wang Lin didn't hesitate at all and used celestial sword to block. With a bang, Wang Lin was pushed back more than 100 feet. Although the celestial sword wasn't damaged, Wang Lin coughed out blood from the force of the blow. Just at this moment, the ice giant landed before Wang Lin with one leap. It swung its fist down, and inside the fist was the image of the whip. Wang Lin's expression was serious as he quickly threw the celestial sword toward the fist. The moment the fist hit Wang Lin, the sword flashed by the right arm and cut the entire arm off. The celestial sword itself was very different from the sword energy. The celestial sword landed 1,000 feet away and stabbed deep into the ground. Blood sprayed out from all over Wang Lin's body and many of his bones were broken. However, he laughed and said, "Red Butterfly, I took one of your arms and now I took one of this useless ice giant's arms. It is now more fitting for you." He waved his hand and the ice giant's right arm appeared in his hand. A flash of blue light appeared and the ice immediately fell from the arm until it shrank to half its size. Right now the many spikes on the war chariot released a black aura that was being absorbed by the spirit beast. The spirit beast grew larger, and its eyes revealed a vicious gaze. The ice giant let out a roar and rushed toward its broken arm. Wang Lin's eyes became cold and he spat out a ray of white light that surrounded the arm. He was now using all of his energy to refine it. More cracks appeared on the arm, and it shrank again. The giant's speed was very quick. It arrived with one jump, and then it swung its left arm. Bang! Wang Lin backed up and then disappeared. Cracks immediately appeared on the ground where Wang Lin was just standing. When Wang Lin reappeared, he was next to the celestial sword and grabbed it. Wang Lin shouted again. "Break!" The arm coated in white light cracked again and a large amount of ice fell off. Right now, this arm was the same size as a normal person's arm. The giant suddenly turned around and swung out another punch that was as fast as lightning. Wang Lin raised the celestial sword and swung down. Just at this moment, the whip suddenly appeared on the ice giant's chest. Wang Lin's expression changed, and he moved the celestial sword to block before him. However, the whip changed directions. It went around Wang Lin and hit his body. Bang! Wang Lin coughed out blood, and his body was knocked back 100 feet. His origin soul was once again whipped out of his body and flew out 1,000 feet. The ice giant's eyes released a ghostly light. It ignored Wang Lin's original soul and instead walked toward Wang Lin's body. "War chariot, activate!" Wang Lin's eyes lit up. During the time he managed to delay the ice giant, the god-slaying chariot managed to activate. The beast spirit let out a roar and charged out. All of the chains on the beast spirit were gone. However, instead of charging at the ice giant, it charged toward Wang Lin. "Disobedient beast!" Wang Lin's eyes lit up. His hand formed a seal and a chain flew out from the chariot. The chain locked the beast spirit in place. The beast spirit struggled vigorously and didn't change its direction. It clearly wanted to use whatever it took to devour Wang Lin. At this moment, the giant arrived next to Wang Lin's body and smiled as it smashed its fist down. The last day of June, wishing for the like button for the VIDEO. A sweep of the like button for the VIDEO each month. The June ticket expires tonight at 12. Chapter 365, Power of Domains. Wang Lin's origin soul shouted, "Shu Li Guo." The celestial sword let out a miserable scream as black gas appeared on the sword, and it blocked the fist. Bang! The giant S fist hit the celestial sword and was pushed back by the shockwave. However, Shu Liguo let out a weak cry before the celestial sword fell to the ground. No more sounds came from it. The giant S eyes lit up as it ran up again. Just at this moment, even more chains flew out of the war chariot and dragged the beast spirit back. The beast spirit was filled with rage as it turned toward the ice giant and charged toward it. The giant immediately raised its head. It stopped its attack on Wang Lin's body and punched the incoming beast spirit. Bang, bang, bang! The giant continued to attack and knock the beast spirit away. This angered the beast spirit. Its mouth expanded greatly and devoured the ice giant. However, the moment it tried to devour the ice giant, the whip came out and hit the beast spirit. The beast spirit felt pain and immediately shrank a bit. Pa! Pa! The continuous whipping caused the beast spirit to be furious, but it ignored the whip to continue to devour. The beast spirit went through the ice giant S body. The giant S body shook, and a large amount of cracks appeared on it. More ice fell off, and the ice giant shrank once more. It was now only 20 feet tall, and the ice around its right shoulder began to melt. The beast spirit was about to turn around for another attack when Red Butterfly opened her eyes. The curse was suppressed back to the single black line on her forehead. Red Butterfly's rushed voice contained a hint of darkness as she said, "Soul Lasher! Reveal your true form." This time, a pure white whip appeared in the ice giant's hand. This whip isn't illusionary like before, but solid. It whipped the beast spirit like crazy. The pain caused the beast spirit to become even more enraged. It was about to charge out again when it suddenly let out a painful cry and looked back at the war chariot. After all, he was only a spirit and was limited by the chariot. Also, Wang Lin was not using it properly for it to display its full power, so now it was feeling the call of the chariot. The beast spirit let out a reluctant roar into the sky as it changed into gas and returned to the war chariot. Wang Lin's origin soul had returned to his body during the fight between the beast spirit and the ice giant. He had also consumed pills to recover and sent spiritual energy into the celestial sword to awaken Shu Liguo. With the celestial sword in his hand, he swung down. Wang Lin's sword energy quickly arrived. The ice giant let out a roar and punched the sword energy. It turned around, kicked the ground, causing the ground to crack, and quickly escaped. Chase! Wang Lin's eyes became cold as he raised his sword and chased after her. Red Butterfly's face was gloomy. The battle today was much harder than their battle back in the celestial realm. She never would have even dreamt that this Xianxia Yu would have gained this much power in a mere decade. Thinking back to the celestial realm, when she used her full power to kill this person, Xianxia Yu could only run and had no power to resist. Even later on, it was only because he had a treasure that could collapse a celestial fragment that she was suppressed. She never saw Wang Lin as anything. In her heart, this Xianxia Yu was not someone at the same level as her. He was weak, an insect, a stepping stone that would obey the strong. She had killed many soul formation cultivators like Wang Lin during her battle against the Four Sect Alliance. Even in Suzaku, she kept this mentality. This was her pride. However, this pride crumbled when Wang Lin took her arm. She couldn't stand the fact that a weak and insignificant cultivator dared to sneak attack her. Her hatred for Wang Lin had reached its limit. She resolved herself to kill Wang Lin in order to make her Dao heart complete again. She even took out Shui Yu's national treasure, the Ice God, to kill this person. Even her senior apprentice brother secretly borrowed the Heavenly Jade Sect's main treasure, the Soul Lasher, and let her borrow it to get on her good side. She originally didn't want to use the Soul Lasher. She thought that with the Ice God and her life treasure, killing Xianxia Yu would be as easy as taking candy from a baby. However, she had heard a lot of rumors about the Soul Lasher and was moved by them, so she didn't reject the offer. She hid it inside the Ice God to use it as a secret weapon to win. But right now, after so many rounds, their battle had reached its boiling point. This Xianxia Yu's treasures were endless, far more than she could have imagined. Especially that beast spirit. It was too fierce. If Xianxia Yu had the power to control it and the beast spirit continued to attack, she was sure that without the Soul Lasher, she would have lost. Right now, she could only escape. The Ice God was extremely weak. From all the damage it took, it was now only 20 feet tall. If it shrank any more, it would collapse completely. She had only experienced this kind of escape twice in her entire life. The first time was when she was forced into a corner by Wang Lin, and the second time was right now. To be forced to escape like this twice by the same person was like a slap in the face for her. This made her feel very ashamed, and her hatred deepened. Wang Lin chased closely after her with a gloomy expression on his face. He looked at the figure constantly teleporting before him and said, "Red Butterfly, where is your pride? Does the heavenly daughter of Suzaku have to run from me, a mere mid-stage soul formation cultivator? Sang Niu. If I don't kill you, I am not called Red Butterfly." Avatars. Even though Wang Lin was taunting her, her pride made it so that she had to fight him. A change suddenly occurred. She let out a scream and the rose appeared before the ice giant. There were no flower petals, only 2 stamens. Red Butterfly didn't hesitate as her origin soul flew out and split in half. One half went into the stamens. The 2 stamens fused together to form a very beautiful figure. The figure quickly took form and revealed its appearance. An avatar that looked exactly like Red Butterfly appeared, only this avatar had all of her limbs. Red Butterfly's avatar opened her eyes and looked very calm. The original Red Butterfly was very cold and ruthless, but this avatar showed no emotion and was extremely calm. Saying to you, "I don't mind giving up my chance to reach the soul transformation stage anytime soon just to kill you." This avatar was something she had been cultivating to make it easier for her to reach the soul transformation stage. Unless it was absolutely needed, she wouldn't bring the avatar out. But now, in order to kill Wang Lin, she didn't care about the cost. This avatar had no spiritual energy inside, even though it contained some of her origin soul. This avatar was filled with her domain. She had been pouring her domain into the avatar for a while. Red Butterfly and her avatar both said, at the same time, "Ruthless domain." The avatar quickly flew forward and emitted a rainbow-colored light. Red Butterfly's avatar said, in a very alluring voice, to lure out all the emotions of the mortal world, and then using the blade of intelligence to cut it all away. "This is the ruthless domain. Emotions come forth." The color of the sky suddenly changed, and a mysterious power covered the heavens and earth. 7 rainbow-colored orbs suddenly appeared next to Red Butterfly, and then flew toward Wang Lin. Familial love. 2 balls of light shattered to form a man and woman. The man had trimmed white hair, and the woman had a loving gaze. Love. Li Muan's figure appeared in the orb. She stared at Wang Lin with eyes filled with sadness. Hatred. Tang Huayuan teared open the orb of light and walked out. There were countless souls in his hand. The souls of the Wang family cried out in anguish. Appreciation. Sang Danyu's 3 generations walked out and stared at Wang Lin in confusion. He opened his mouth to talk, but couldn't say a word. Wang Lin's body stopped moving, and he sat cross-legged. His origin soul flew out and said, "Under the reincarnation cycle, life and death domain." The sky was suddenly torn open by a pair of giant hands, and a rift appeared. A giant, black and white painting came out of the rift. There were many large mountains and flowing rivers inside the scroll. Although they looked still, they were in fact moving. Under the life and death scroll, Wang Lin's origin soul was glowing. He revealed a complex expression as he looked at the people before him. Red Butterfly's avatar said, "Sword of Intelligence." A rainbow-colored sword appeared before Red Butterfly's avatar. Cut. Wang Lin's parents were killed by the sword. They were soon followed by Li Muan. Daniu's family was killed by Tang Huayuan, and then he disappeared after a swing of the sword. Ruthless. Red Butterfly and her avatar looked very worn out. She then pointed at Wang Lin. Wang Lin's origin soul shook and his eyes became dim. His right hand raised up and pointed at the life and death scroll in the sky. Wang Lin softly said, "Even a ruthless person can escape the reincarnation cycle. How could the emotions in the world be so easily cut or discarded? Although the Sword of Intelligence is powerful, it can cut through the cycle of reincarnation." Black and white gas appeared and fused together to make the gray gas of the reincarnation cycle. The gray gas suddenly came out of the scroll in the shape of a giant thumb and pressed down before Red Butterfly's avatar. Red Butterfly's avatar's body trembled. She shook her head, bitterly smiled, and said, "If I could have reached the soul transformation stage, even the reincarnation cycle would be suppressed by ruthlessness. If the heavens' reincarnation cycle wasn't ruthless, then it wouldn't be the heaven's reincarnation cycle anymore. Unfortunate, the avatar let out a sigh as it disappeared. In dreams, Leo sees his video standing in third place on the popular charts. Hoping to garner more fan support, and looking for help from you all to climb even higher in the rankings this month, Chapter 366, The Conspiracy Reveals Itself. Red Butterfly coughed out a mouthful of blood. Her origin soul was damaged, but the hatred in her eyes were replaced by a hint of clarity. Wang Lin's origin soul returned to his body, and his face became very pale. Although the battle between domains looked calm, it was the most dangerous part of this fight. The moment Red Butterfly's sword of intelligence landed, his origin soul was damaged. If it wasn't for the fact that his life and death domain had evolved when he reached the mid-stage of soul formation, his origin soul would have been destroyed. Even right now, his life and death domain was only a bit more powerful than Red Butterfly's domain. This was because, as Red Butterfly said, the heavenly reincarnation cycle was originally ruthless. However, there was a very fine line between ruthless and emotionless. Because of this difference, Wang Lin barely won. In truth, domain battles between cultivators were them proving their own Tao paths to each other. I understand. Red Butterfly's eyes released a mysterious light as she looked toward Wang Lin. All of her hatred disappeared. She returned to the completely cold and emotionless gaze she had when she first met Wang Lin. Wang Lin's heart sank. Red Butterfly was indeed a genius to be able to gain something from this domain battle. This woman must be killed, or else Wang Lin won't have a day of peace in the future. Wang Lin moved. He slapped his bag of holding and took out the restriction flag. Restriction gas flew out and formed into a black lance. As more restriction gas entered the lance, there were sounds of it expanding. The lance grew larger and gained a stronger aura. All of the restriction gas had gathered in the lance. This was the peak power of the restriction flag after reaching its first completion stage. Wang Lin quickly charged forward with the lance in one hand. With his other hand, he swung down the celestial sword. Boom! The ice giant let out a roar and jumped into the air to punch Wang Lin. However, the lance was longer, so it lunged toward Red Butterfly at the ice giant's forehead. The ice giant's hand grabbed the lance. However, the sword energy was right behind the lance, so it landed without any resistance. Bang! The giant let out a painful cry and its left hand smashed down as restriction gas entered its body. However, the lance didn't hit Red Butterfly but stabbed the giant's neck. Boom! The giant's eyes dimmed, and it slowly fell to the ground. Red Butterfly took a deep breath and pointed at her brow. Then she came out of the ice giant and floated in the air. Her current body was very weak, her life treasure was used up, her domain avatar was destroyed, her origin soul was heavily injured, and the ice giant was destroyed. Right now she was as weak as she was back in the celestial realm. But she seemed to have a feeling of enlightenment and no longer had the urge to fight. She felt that once she comprehended this feeling, then killing this Sung Niu would be as simple as waving her hand. Countless cracks appeared on the giant as it fell and finally collapsed. All of the ice melted, revealing a pure white whip. Red Butterfly waved her hand and the soul lasher flew toward her. How could Wang Lin let her succeed? This was something he had to obtain. The lance quickly turned into a black whip and wrapped around the soul lasher. Red Butterfly's expression changed and she shouted, "You dare!" "Why wouldn't I dare?" Wang Lin laughed as he pulled the soul lasher toward him. He swung the celestial sword at Red Butterfly to prevent her from fighting him for it. Red Butterfly's face was gloomy. After pondering for a bit, she let go to dodge the sword energy and sneered at Wang Lin. "Sang Niu, this soul lasher has a seal placed on it by the Heavenly Jade Sect. Even if you steal it, you won't be able to use it." As she spoke, the black line on Red Butterfly's forehead slowly faded away until it disappeared without a trace. Her domain avatar was destroyed during the domain battle, so her method to reach the soul transformation with relative ease was gone. But the enlightenment she gained made her confident that she would be able to break into the soul transformation stage on her own in a few decades. She took a deep breath and 4 rays of light suddenly appeared around her. When the lights disappeared, 4 figures appeared. Metal spirit, wood spirit, water spirit, fire spirit. Aside from the earth spirit, the other elemental spirits all appeared. This was Red Butterfly's ultimate treasure. This was her root and where her talent came from. Wang Lin scanned the soul lasher with his divine sense. What he saw made his heart sink. There was a powerful seal on the soul lasher, so his divine sense couldn't get through it at all. Wang Lin snorted. He put the soul lasher into his bag of holding and then stared at the 4 elemental spirits. In today's battle, Wang Lin had been heavily injured. Aside from the various injuries on his body, his origin soul had also been damaged. This could be said to be a very bitter fight. Wang Lin's eyes became cold and he thought, 4 spirits, my heaven-defying bead will use these to reach completion today. As Red Butterfly stared at Wang Lin, her hand formed a seal and she said, 4 spirits, killing formation. After that, she turned to leave. She wasn't in the mood to fight anymore and was ready to leave this place. Wang Lin was about to chase when the 4 spirits suddenly moved and charged toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He shook the restriction flag in his hand and the lance reformed. He thrusted the lance toward the spirit in the front. The spirit increased its speed and collided with the lance. Wang Lin swung the celestial sword with his right hand, but the wood spirit went to block it as the water and metal spirits closed in on him. Wang Lin snorted. Back then, before he had reached the soul formation stage, he had to put in a lot of effort to win against one spirit. However, he was now at the mid of stage soul formation and had already planned on how to steal these elemental spirits from Red Butterfly. At this moment, his eyes were calm. He slapped his bag of holding and 9 carvings appeared. These 9 wood carvings all contained the time domain. Aside from 2 of them, the remaining 7 were all made from the wood of the reincarnation tree. This material made it much easier to activate the time domain and was much more powerful. Wang Lin softly said, "Time!" An invisible shockwave suddenly spread out, and the 4 elemental spirits paused for a moment. Wang Lin's speed was very quick. He immediately grabbed hold of the metal spirit and with one step suppressed the wood spirit. After that, he ignored the remaining 2 spirits and chased after Red Butterfly. Red Butterfly was more than 1,000 feet away when her face turned pale. She didn't expect that Xianxia would still have a powerful treasure left after this battle. She felt very bitter in her heart. No matter what, she had to kill this person today. Only by using all of her treasures and using the fact that she had a bit more spiritual energy than him could she kill him in one fell swoop. Her eyes darkened and she said, "Metal spirit, explode!" The metal spirit being held by Wang Lin suddenly shook and began to release a destructive aura. Wang Lin let go of the metal spirit and teleported away. The wood spirit was still in Wang Lin's hands. Bang! The spirit exploded. Although Wang Lin teleported away, he was still hit by it. He coughed out a large mouthful of blood and immediately weakened. His cultivation became unstable after all of these injuries, so it dropped to the early stage of soul formation. After landing, Wang Lin immediately took out pills from his bag and swallowed them. His eyes flashed as he teleported to Red Butterfly. He formed a seal with his hand and said, "Red Butterfly, accept your death." Red Butterfly's eyes lit up and she said, "3 spirits, explode!" The remaining 3 spirits trembled, and 3 powerful destructive auras began to spread. Wang Lin's expression changed greatly. Red Butterfly's eyes were cold. There was no color in her eyes as she said, "If you kill me, we both die together." Wang Lin's eyes became even colder as he pressed down the seal in his hand without any hesitation. For the first time, panic entered Red Butterfly's face. But just at this moment, a gentle power descended from the sky and surrounded the 3 spirits. The destructive force disappeared and the spirits were saved. A person silently appeared before Red Butterfly. This person was Suzaku's Gong Sunpo. He casually waved his right hand and Wang Lin was knocked back 100 feet. Wang Lin glared at Gong Sunpo and silently pondered. This power was not something he could fight against, and let's not forget that he was heavily injured. "Xianxia, you won. Go to Mount Suzaku to receive your order and someone will arrange things for you. After that, you will be a disciple Suzaku invited from the outside. As one of these disciples, Suzaku can grant you one wish. Once you have decided on what you want, you can come to Mount Suzaku to state your wish." Gong Sunpo grabbed the 3 spirits and put them back inside Red Butterfly. However, when the wood spirit was flying over, Wang Lin clenched his teeth, swung the celestial sword, and cut it in half. He quickly molded half of the wood spirit into a crystal and put it inside his bag of holding. After he did this, he raised his head and looked at Gong Sunpo. You sure are bold. Looking at the fact that you won, I won T pursuit this matter, but your wish is cancelled. Gong Sunpo coldly looked at Wang Lin. Then he pointed at the sky, and the spirit that had exploded reformed. The old man put it back inside Red Butterfly as well. Color returned to Red Butterfly's face, and she respectfully said, "Thank you, Elder." Gong Sunpo's gaze toward Red Butterfly wasn't kind. He reached out toward Wang Lin with his right hand and said, "Hand over the soul lasher." Wang Lin stared at Gong Sunpo and pondered a bit. Seeing that Gong Sunpo was getting impatient, he secretly let out a sigh. In the cultivation world, strength was all that mattered. He took out the soul lasher and bitterly handed it over. After Gong Sunpo grabbed the soul lasher, his right hand pointed at the air and the door of light appeared. "Let's go." Gong Sunpo walked through the door. Red Butterfly quickly followed. She turned around to coldly stare at Wang Lin and whispered, "You will die for sure next time." The current Red Butterfly didn't too know that she only had 3 days left to live. A secret plot began unfolding after an order was given out by someone at Mount Suzaku. From yesterday until now, Leo has only slept for 2 hours. Can't take it anymore. Today there's only the first watch. Leo wants to catch up on sleep. After the salon ends, the missing chapters will be compensated. Chapter 367, Lu Mei and Xianfeng. Wang Lin stepped into the door of light. When he reappeared on the altar, everyone was already gone, like no one was ever there to begin with. After looking around, he found that he was the only person left. A piece of jade was floating in the air and releasing a gentle glow. Wang Lin waved his right hand and caught the jade. He checked the jade and found a map. The map led to Mount Suzaku. He pondered for a bit and sat down in the lotus position. He had sustained heavy injuries in his fight against Red Butterfly, and his cultivation was unstable. Even if he were to take pills, they would only help a bit, and he wouldn't be able to recover in a short period of time. If he wanted to completely recover, he would have to enter closed-door cultivation. After a long time, the sky darkened and Wang Lin stood up. He slapped his bag of holding, and the mosquito beast appeared. He sat down on the mosquito, sent out a message to the mosquito, and continued to cultivate. The mosquito's flight became more smooth as it headed toward the direction Wang Lin instructed. The night was very quiet in Suzaku. The moon was high in the sky, and moonlight covered the ground. 3 days later, a strange scene occurred in the back mountain of Mount Suzaku. Mount Suzaku was the holy land of Suzaku. In the front was the Suzaku's palace, and in the back was the back mountain of Suzaku, where one would require the permission of the current Suzaku to enter. The back mountain wasn't very large. It was only a large cave. This cave was divided into 4 layers. At the moment, there were 2 deep pools on the second layer. Both pools were releasing white gas. However, the gases from the 2 pools acted differently when they reached the ceiling. The white gas from one of the pools would immediately turn into frost and spread out. The white gas from the other pool would immediately become red water droplets and disappear into the ceiling. One pool was cold, and the other was hot. The cool pool contained 30,000-year-old cold water from the heavenly frost planet. Suzaku paid a huge price for it. The flame pool contained 30,000-year-old fire from the origin fire planet. The cost was the same as the cool pool. Around these 2 pools were 99 top-quality spirit stones that made up 2 different formations and released an unimaginable amount of spiritual energy. At this moment, in the centers of each of the 2 pools sat 1 male and 1 female. The man was sitting above the flame pool and the female was sitting above the cold pool. Both of them were wearing very thin clothes and were cultivating. The male wasn't very handsome, but he emitted a slightly evil aura. However, this evil aura didn't irritate people. Instead, it made people feel a strange intimacy toward him. The female wasn't any less beautiful than Red Butterfly. She could be considered a national treasure. In addition, compared to Red Butterfly, this girl had a more charming atmosphere about her, making her even more alluring. If Wang Lin was here, he would feel that this woman was familiar. At this moment, an old man covered in a red glow entered the cave. This old man looked exactly like the dirty old man who gave Wang Lin the straw hat. However, their auras were very different. This was clearly a different person. After a long time, the old man slowly said, "Xianfeng." The male sitting inside the flame pool opened his eyes. The evil aura around him became even stronger. He remained calm after seeing the old man and said, "Xianfeng greets ancestor. Red Butterfly is inside the secret room. Go and devour her consciousness and domain." The old man's voice was filled with a sense of age. The man's eyes flashed and he said, "Red butterfly." But she is your U.S. heavenly daughter. When he said heavenly daughter, he licked his lips and made a face filled with disdain. The old man slowly said, "Her ruthless domain had a breakthrough in her battle with Xianxia, so it's about to reach its first completion, but she hasn't realized it yet. Once you devour her, you will have gained the ruthless domain. As a result, your chance of reaching the ascendant stage will increase a bit more. I have searched for a very long time for this girl." The male stood up. As he did this, white gas was released from his body. His eyes revealed an evil gaze as he muttered, "Xianxia, I don't know if he can take one hit using 10% of my cultivation with his cultivation level right now." The old man sighed. "It is a bit regrettable about Red Butterfly. This girl, I am getting old and just can't bear to do certain things. Forget it, you go." The male faintly smiled and said, "Ancestor, you always say regrettable, but the title of Suzaku won't be passed to an outsider. It will either be me or junior apprentice sister." With that, his body slowly faded until it disappeared. Inside a chamber, Red Butterfly was cultivating with her eyes closed to recover. She opened her eyes and said, "Xianxia, next time I'll definitely kill you." A gentle voice suddenly appeared inside the chamber. "I'll grant your wish for you." Who? Red Butterfly's eyes suddenly became serious. The evil-looking young man came out of the void and said to Red Butterfly, "I am Qian Feng." Then he casually pointed with his finger. Red Butterfly's face changed. Her hand formed a seal and a red light started being emitted from her body. The young man shook his head and revealed a mocking smile. His finger shattered the red light and landed between Red Butterfly's eyebrows. Red Butterfly's body trembled. She wanted to struggle, but that finger was like a mountain. It made her unable to resist. "What are you doing?" Red Butterfly forced herself to calm down. Qian Feng's eyes looked extremely evil as he whispered in Red Butterfly's ear, "I want your domain and your 4 elemental spirits." Red Butterfly's master calculated that she would go through a calamity. However, her master got the wrong person. It wasn't Wang Lin but this Qian Feng. Inside the cave, the old man sighed again. "Unfortunately, there can only be one Suzaku." The old man's gaze landed on the woman sitting in the cold pool as he said, "You may." The woman inside the cold pool opened her eyes. Her eyes were calm as she looked at the old man. This woman was the Xuan Dao sect, Liu Mei. The old man said, "You made 1,000 avatars to go cultivate at various sects in different countries to comprehend the heavens' laws. One of the avatars went to the Xuan Dao sect in Zhao. Remember Wang Lin? He was a disciple of the Hangyu sect." Liu Mei pondered a bit and said, "Disciple has some memory, but it's not very clear." "That Xianxia is Wang Lin." There was no shock in Liu Mei's eyes. She only nodded and didn't say a word. "The original person I prepared for you was Zhou Yi from the 5 Elements sect. He had the crazed domain. If you could have left your mark on his Dao heart, you could have devoured his crazed domain. Unfortunately, this person disappeared within the celestial realm." Liu Mei pondered. The old man looked at Liu Mei and said, "You are about to leave your closed-door cultivation. That Xianxia should arrive soon, so you should go greet him. Use whatever method you can to leave your mark on his Dao heart. Use this man as your furnace to help your domain reach its greater completion. Once you succeed, you will gain control of his life and death domain. As a result, you will have a higher chance than Feng Heir to take the title of Suzaku." Liu Mei let out a sigh. She bit her lower lip and began to ponder. "Oh? You're not willing?" The old man's eyes glowed red. They seemed reserved yet dignified. Liu Mei whispered, "Disciple obeys." The old man raised his head and looked into the distance. His eyes seemed to be able to see through the cave and into the distance where an old man was eating a drumstick in a rank cultivation country. "Junior apprentice brother, of the 4 people you picked, Xianxia is the weakest, so I guess you won team mind. I am going into closed-door cultivation. I hope that when I come out, you will have already succeeded." After a long time, the old man withdrew his gaze and disappeared in a flash of red light. Liu Mei stood up. Her thin clothes stuck to her body, revealing a perfectly curved and exquisite figure. She wore a pale pink inner dress and then an outer white dress that revealed her alluring neck. The pleats of the skirt flowed lightly like splendid, white moonlight on the ground. 3,000 strands of her hair were tied up with a ribbon with one strand hanging in front of her chest. Her skin was as white as snow, and the faint red blush that appeared on her face created a very charming and delicate aura. She was like a beautiful butterfly floating in the wind, but at the same time as cold as ice. She was Lu Mei. Compared to when Wang Lin met her, she was even more alluring and beautiful. Wang Lin, is it, the young one with the large sword in the Hung Yue sect? Yes, he was the first person to regain his senses. I didn't think that he would enter the eyes of the ancestor in just years. This person is not simple. Lu Mei let out a sigh and walked out of the cave. To leave my mark on his Dao heart will not be hard, however. Is this the right way? Lu Mu revealed a look of confusion. At this moment, the evil-looking young man named Xianfeng floated into the cave with someone behind him. The person was Red Butterfly. However, Red Butterfly's eyes were like black holes, and there was no sign of life on her body. She was like a puppet. Liu Mei calmly looked at Red Butterfly and didn't say a word. Qianfeng stopped 3 feet away from Liu Mei. He let out a smile, revealing his white teeth, and said, "Junior apprentice sister, are you going to leave?" Liu Mei nodded and whispered, "Senior brother Qianfeng, is the person behind you Red Butterfly?" Qianfeng laughed. "Red Butterfly is already dead. She is my concubine furnace. Let's just call her Heartless." Liu Mei carefully looked at Red Butterfly until she couldn't really bear to watch anymore. She knew that Red Butterfly had already lost her domain and life energy and had become Qianfeng's puppet. The fact that a top beauty of this generation had suffered such a fate made Liu Mei feel melancholy. This was the 3rd person devoured by Qianfeng so far. Every time he devoured someone, his cultivation level increased. The ancestor was getting desperate to raise the next Suzaku. Qianfeng looked at Liu Mei's back with an evil gaze and muttered, "Junior apprentice sister, one day you will become my concubine." Heartless, what do you think? Red Butterfly stood motionlessly behind him. There was no light in her eyes. It was as if she was just a corpse. Aimlessly wishing for the like button for the video. Chapter 368, Big Calamity. Somewhere in a rank 1 cultivation country in Suzaku, a dirty old man who was eating a drumstick suddenly coughed a few times and spat out the chicken meat in his mouth. His face was extremely gloomy as he stood up, but then, after pondering a bit, he sat down. His expression was extremely ugly as he muttered to himself, "Senior apprentice brother, you and I have battled throughout our entire lives. Are we going to continue to fight? Even when we are about to die, I lost the battle for the title of Suzaku back then, so you could have it, but you shouldn't push it too far. Since Wang Lin was able to return from the celestial realm, he is chosen by me. If you ruin him, I'll ruin Qianfeng." He threw the chicken drumstick in his hand away, and his eyes glowed with anger. However, I wonder what the chances of that junior Wang Lin turning that little girl Liu Mei into his cultivation furnace, our senior apprentice brother. Let's see if your disciple is better or if my chosen candidate is superior. That will also be very fun. Wang Lin was cultivating with his eyes closed while sitting on the mosquito beast. After a long time, he opened his eyes and sighed. "My body's injuries are fine, but the injuries to my soul are a problem. Also, I have this feeling of danger here in Suzaku. This feeling is definitely accurate." Red Butterfly's injuries were similar to mine, but she had a breakthrough. If I can reach the late stage of soul formation by the time she comes out of closed-door cultivation, I am afraid I won't be able to defend against her. Wang Lin was in deep thought when his expression suddenly changed. The mosquito stopped flying and looked around in confusion. "Big Dipper transfer!" An ancient voice suddenly yelled, and then a giant formation appeared in the sky. Wang Lin didn't hesitate to put the mosquito away and teleport. However, he only teleported 1,000 feet away before he was knocked out of his teleportation by an invisible force. Shortly after, the formation in the sky moved, and a powerful surge of spiritual energy poured out of it. Wang Lin was shocked and was sucked into the formation. In the blink of an eye, his body disappeared inside the formation. The formation slowly disappeared, and an old man slowly walked out. He muttered, "Country of Shuiyu, you owe this old man a favor." This person was the one that was sitting next to Gong Sumpo. He was a foreign affairs elder. In a deserted area in the northern end of the Suzaku continent, a giant formation suddenly opened up and a person was thrown out. Wang Lin stopped his body midair. He looked around and his expression darkened. There was a middle-aged man before him as well as tables, chairs, and a tea set. The middle-aged man was sitting on the chair as he picked up the cup, took a sip, and said, Junior Seng Ni Yu, I am Shui Yu as Sectmaster Li Yuanfeng. I am here to take your life for Red Butterfly. Soul transformation. He was able to tell the middle-aged man's cultivation level at a glance. His expression darkened even more. Without any hesitation, he tried to rip open a spatial rift to escape with the star compass. Wang Lin knew that he couldn't resist a soul transformation cultivator. He could only try to escape. However, Wang Lin's eyes suddenly became cold. Normally, with Wang Lin's cultivation level, he could easily tear open space, but right now he couldn't tear it open even when using all his power. This didn't have anything to do with his cultivation level dropping. After all, he was still at the early stage of soul formation, so he should be easily been able to open a spatial rift. The middle-aged man put down the teacup and shook his head. Little guy, to prevent you from escaping, I set a formation to seal the space in this area. Your star compass might as well be a pile of trash here. Without a word, Wang Lin turned to teleport, but then his eyes suddenly became even colder. He couldn't teleport. The star compass was useless, and teleportation was useless. This person had clearly done plenty of research to set up this trap that prevented Wang Lin from escaping. Wang Lin took one step and quickly backed away. The middle-aged man casually poured another cup, gently blew at the tea, took a sip, put down the cup, and stood up. He shook his head and said, I normally don't act, but when I do I don't let my guard down just because my target is at the soul formation stage. Saying to you are definitely dying this time. He flew after Wang Lin. The middle-aged man flew at exactly the same speed as Wang Lin. He was going too slow to catch up on purpose, like a cat playing with a mouse. Wang Lin's expression darkened even more. He slapped his bag of holding and took out a piece of jade. He filled it with spiritual energy, causing a blue flame to quickly surround it, and then it disappeared. Sun Tai, come quickly, Wang Lin sighed. Not long after, he quickly stopped. Before him stood 3 people. The 3 of them were all wearing black robes, and their faces were covered. The person in the middle took a step forward, and then an oppressive aura appeared. Another soul transformation cultivator. Wang Lin's heart felt very bitter. At this moment, the middle-aged man arrived. He stopped 100 feet away from Wang Lin and said, There is no need to run, Sung and Yu. Today is the day you die. With that, he raised his right hand and pointed at Wang Lin. A whirlwind suddenly appeared and charged toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin quickly backed up. He took out the celestial sword and slashed at the whirlwind. The sword energy shattered the whirlwind and charged toward the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man revealed a mocking smile. He caught the sword energy with his hand and crushed it. What is this? The middle-aged man was a bit surprised. His right hand felt a bit numb. Wang Lin sighed again. After his cultivation level dropped, his spiritual energy was a mess. His origin soul had also taken damage, so he couldn't even show the same power he had when fighting Red Butterfly. Wang Lin clenched his teeth and turned around to escape again. Just at this moment, the soul transformation cultivator wearing black robes let out snort. He caught up to Wang Lin like lightning and gently hit Wang Lin's back with his palm. Wang Lin let out a painful groan. He only had time to focus all of the remaining spiritual energy in his body on his back and use the celestial sword to block. However, his body was still hit by a powerful force and was knocked into the ground 1,000 feet away. He coughed out a huge mouthful of blood along with some small pieces of his internal organs. Wang Lin's face was almost like a dead person's. There were now more injuries on top of his previous ones. The black-robed person reached out and took Wang Lin's celestial sword. He said, "This is a good sword. There is even a sword spirit inside." "Not bad." The middle-aged man faintly smiled and said, "This sword belongs to you, but that little flag that can attract divine retribution belongs to me." The black-robed old man laughed and said, "Okay. The star compass originally belonged to my clan, so I'm going to take it back." The middle-aged man nodded and said, "Of course." Wang Lin struggled to get up. His legs were trembling slightly. This was due to his injuries. With a sullen expression, he looked at the black-robed old man and said, "Giant Demon Clan!" The black-robed old man took off his mask, revealing a gray-haired elder, but his eyes were like the moonlight. He looked at Wang Lin and laughed. "Junior Sung Niu, this old man is indeed from the Giant Demon Clan. Back in the celestial realm, you stole the star compass from our young master, so I am here to take it back today. I hope you won't mind." Wang Lin's gaze was dark. His right hand trembled as he took out pills from his bag and ate them before the two soul transformation cultivators. Then he calmly said, "Two soul transformation old monsters came out at once to kill me. This honor, I'll remember it." The middle-aged man faintly smiled and said, "That is correct. Even though you are going to die, you should die with a smile. As for your treasures, I am very interested in them." With that, he pointed at Wang Lin again. This time, a surge of spiritual energy shot out from the middle-aged man's finger toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin had managed to recover a bit of spiritual energy, so he took out the restriction flag and shook it. Restriction gas came out and formed walls of restriction to block that surge of spiritual energy. Many layers of the restriction gas were shattered, but it managed to stop the spiritual energy that was heading toward Wang Lin. The middle-aged man's eyes lit up as looked toward the restriction flag in Wang Lin's hand and smiled. "What a good little flag. I have to study it carefully." From his point of view, Sang Niu would die for sure. It was impossible for two soul transformation cultivators to be unable to kill a mere soul formation cultivator. Wang Lin's face became even more pale and a hint of despair appeared in his heart. His original body definitely couldn't come. Ignoring the fact that it was too far away, his original body still couldn't come here or he would die for real. He had to stall for time until Sun Tai arrived. This was the only way. However, all of his spiritual energy was used up when he used the restriction flag. There was no more spiritual energy left in his body. The middle-aged man was about to point his finger again when one of the people in black beside the old man went forth and respectfully said, "Ancestor, let Junior kill this person to avenge myself." The middle-aged man lowered his hand and looked toward the ancestor of the giant demon clan. The ancestor looked at the black-cloaked person and nodded. The black-cloaked person turned around and took off his mask. It was Chi Hu. Chi Hu's eyes were calm as he flew toward Wang Lin. Chi Hu. As Wang Lin held the restriction flag in his hand, his eyes revealed a complicated feeling. "Sang Niu, accept your death," Chi Hu shouted, but his eyes revealed a mysterious light. His palm shot out a wave of spiritual energy. When Wang Lin saw Chi Hu's gaze, his heart skipped a beat. That wave of spiritual energy that was flying toward Wang Lin had no attack power. It was absorbed by Wang Lin's body. Soon, spiritual energy began to fill Wang Lin's body. Wishing for the like button for the video. Chapter 36 Quarrel. After thinking about it, he took out the mysterious bead and started his first closed-door training. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed. During those 2 years, Wang Lin was either cultivating or practicing his attraction technique, but he didn't feel lonely at all. Even though it had been 2 years in the real world, in reality, he had been in closed-door training for 13 years. The spiritual energy here was very rich. He was very impressed, although it couldn't compare to the spiritual energy liquid whenever he was waiting in the real world. He found the spiritual energy to be at least twice as dense as it was outside of the back mountains. Starting from the second layer, his cultivation became very slow. After cultivating in the dream space for more than 6 years, he reached the limit of the second layer. He then started to tackle breaking into the third layer. After countless tries, he finally broke through. But what was causing him confusion and distress was that in the 7 years after, even though he had already reached the peak of the third layer, he couldn't enter the fourth layer, no matter how hard he tried. It was not that he lacked spiritual energy. He felt a mysterious force stopping him every time he reached the critical point. And this third layer of QI condensation was also weird. It was unlike the first or second layer, where once he reached the peak, he couldn't condense any more spiritual energy. Although Wang Lin felt that he had reached the limit, the third layer didn't seem to have a limit. If he continued to cultivate, his spiritual energy would continue to increase and keep transforming his body. This caused Wang Lin to be very surprised, but no matter how hard he thought about it, he couldn't find an answer. Today, all of the snow water had been used up. He only had 1 gourd of spiritual energy liquid left. That gourd had been with him for a long time. It was one of the 3 that Wang Lin buried in the mountains. He used 2 of them to make the 10th cloud appear on the bead, and considering that he almost died the last time he took a gulp of it, he had been very wary of it and kept it in his bag of holding. After a bit of hesitation, Wang Lin didn't take out that gourd. Based on his calculations, the amount of spiritual energy in that gourd had already reached a terrifying state. He could always use it once he reached a higher level of QI condensation. He stood up and stretched his body. He walked to the lever and pulled. With a roar, the stone door opened. Sunlight poured into the cave and blinded Wang Lin. After he got used to the light, he came out of the cave and took a deep breath. Looking down, there were a lot of people chatting in the valley. It seemed that a lot of these people found cultivation dull and came to socialize. After pondering a little, he activated the technique to hide his cultivation level to the first layer of QI condensation. He waved his sleeves and jumped forward. His body slowly floated down to the ground. In the 13 years that he had spent in the dream space, he had completely mastered the attraction technique. He didn't even need to say the chant anymore. He only needed to will it to use it. Like now, he was using the attraction technique on his body. Although it could be said that once the attraction technique reached a certain level, it was doable. That was only when one moves slowly. The moment it speeds up, it becomes difficult. But Wang Lin felt so confident now that even if he needed to fly quickly, he wouldn't lose control. Without more than 10 years of practicing the attraction technique, this would be impossible. But who had the time to waste on practicing for 10 years on this low-level technique? All of cultivators were racing against time. If they had the time, why not practice some higher-level techniques? In order to not attract attention, Wang Lin slowly landed in the valley. Right as he landed, he could hear the sound of ridicule. The sun really came out from the west side. Even the trash, Wang Lin, has reached the first layer of QI condensation and can finally come down from the cliff without help. Wang Lin turned his head. He indifferently looked at Wang Zhuo. There were also a few people sitting next to him. They were all inner disciples. A 24 to 25-year-old white-clothed youth laughed. Wang Lin, you shouldn't be here. You should be mixed with those honorary disciples back in the chore house. At least there you can feel high and mighty, but here, you are the worst of all of us. Wang Lin scanned with his divine sense. Wang Zhuo was the same as him, reaching the peak of the third layer, and the white-clothed youth had reached the peak of the TH layer. He could break through at any time. Wang Zhuo proudly said, Wang Lin, you sure were smart 2 years ago. You knew you weren't my match, so you just gave up. But let me tell you, trash will always be trash. You will never match up to me. I was the top newcomer 2 years ago, what are you? The white-clothed youth beside him laughed. Junior brother, go fetch me some water from the river there. Your senior brother is feeling good, so I might give you some pointers. As he was speaking, he threw a bottle. It landed at Wang Lin's feet. Wang Lin remained silent and looked at the white-clothed youth. The white-clothed youth said, with a dismissive look, what does this mean? You want to fight? Let me tell you. Second apprentice brother already said that inner disciples can fight with each other. If you don't act properly, don't blame me for teaching you a lesson. That is enough. All of you shut up. A shout came from the cliff. Soon, a shadow appeared like lightning, revealing apprentice brother Zhang's shadow. He frowned and looked at everyone and growled, Wang Zhuo, Sun Hao, the two of you aren't cultivating, but are here bullying a junior who is only at the first layer of QI condensation. Is this really that interesting? The 2S expression quickly changed. They quickly shot Wang Lin ugly looks and lightly snorted. Afterwards, they didn't say anymore. They clearly feared marital brother Zhang. Apprentice brother Zhang's gaze turned to Wang Lin and equally harshly said, Wang Lin, you really shouldn't have come, but since you're here, you should properly cultivate. In the world of cultivation, power is everything. Wang Lin nodded. He hesitated a bit and asked, Apprentice brother Zhang, I have a question. After reaching the peak of the first layer of QI condensation, why, no matter what I do, can I break into the second layer? Wang Zhuo snorted and said, with your talent, don't even think about reaching the second layer in your lifetime. Wishing for the like button for the VIDEO, hoping to double the likes on the VIDEO. In the meantime, everyone, throw your spare ones here. After 369 the reason. Chi Hu quickly arrived before Wang Lin and kicked him, causing him to fly very far. This kick not only didn't harm Wang Lin, it even sent another wave of spiritual energy into him. Brother saying, escape to the southeast. Chi Hu's anxious voice entered Wang Lin's ears. The middle-aged man was able to see through it instantly and snorted. The ancestor of the giant demon clan charged out and shouted, Chi Hu, what are you doing? Chi Hu moved to block his ancestor. His eyes were clear as he shouted, Ancestor, That star compass is something I gifted to Sang Niu, not something he stole. I, Chi-Hu, am a man. Sang Niu saved me multiple times in the celestial realm and he is my friend. How could I abandon him just like that? The ancestor of the giant demon clan let out an angry laugh. He was about to go around Chi-Hu. However, Chi-Hu roared and the axe image on his forehead flashed. He took a step toward his ancestor and shouted, "That star compass is useless to us. So what if I give it to someone else? You already took his flying sword. Is that not enough?" The ancestor suddenly turned around and stared at Chi-Hu. He reached out with his hand, and Chi-Hu immediately felt himself completely locked in place by a powerful force. "If you weren't T the Junior with the most pure giant demon blood, I would kill you today, you ungrateful brat. Once we return to the clan, you will be punished with 100 years of closed-door cultivation and suffer the pain of having your body refined." With that, he chased after the escaping Wang Lin. Chi-Hu clenched his fists as he looked toward where Wang Lin had escaped to. Brother saying I tried my best, Chi-Hu felt melancholy. He didn't think that Wang Lin was going to survive. The reason he was willing to offend the ancestor was to not disappoint himself. "I, Chi-Hu, am an honorable man. Sang Niu considers me a friend, so I can do something so heartless." Wang Lin had recovered some spiritual energy with Chi-Hu's help and was using it to escape. As he flew, Wang Lin pointed at this brow and sighed. He didn't know what formation the enemies had laid down. He only knew that he couldn't tear open space nor teleport. And he even felt something blocking him from entering the heaven-defying bead. At least right now he wouldn't be able to enter it without some time. This formation was very mysterious. It was not only Wang Lin who couldn't teleport. The giant demon clan ancestor who placed the formation couldn't teleport either. The celestial sword was stolen. If I live today, I must take it back. A hint of hatred appeared in Wang Lin's eyes. However, just at this moment, the middle-aged man caught up to Wang Lin and coldly said, "You won't be able to escape. I'll send you to your death." He lifted his right hand and pressed down with his right thumb. A powerful force surged out from the thumb, but just before the force hit Wang Lin, a powerful domain also surged toward him. This domain had a fragrance, the fragrance of tea, to put all of one's effort into appreciating tea to experience life and have the tea accompany one for life. Wang Lin's life and death domain immediately appeared, but when put up against the domain of a soul transformation cultivator, he couldn't compete. He coughed out more blood, and his origin soul was damaged again. Wang Lin's body fell from the sky. Marks that looked like tea leaves appeared on Wang Lin's face. Every time they shined, Wang Lin's body would weaken. His origin soul was slowly dissipating. At this moment, the ancestor of the giant demon clan caught up and lowered his head to look at Wang Lin. "We have already wasted a lot of time. After you kill this person, I still have other things to do. Fellow cultivator Li, go ahead." The middle-aged man's eyes lit up and he smiled. "You were not willing to act because you were afraid of Mount Suzaku. Fine. Since it's my plan, I'll do it." With that, he pointed at Wang Lin. He was about to end Wang Lin's life. However, just at this moment a thunderous clap came from the sky and a giant rift in space was torn open. A black and purple coffin descended from the sky. A cold snort came from the coffin, the heaven and death demon sealing formation. If I didn't already know this formation, it would have been really hard for me to enter. A redrobed old man stared at the three below him with glowing eyes. After seeing the giant demon clan ancestor and the middle-aged man, his face darkened and he cursed. "Sang Niu, do you have nothing better to do instead of getting yourself into trouble? I have to say, aren't you two old farts embarrassed to have to team up to kill a soul formation junior?" "Corpse sect!" The middle-aged man withdrew his finger. His eyes sparkled as he stared at the old man. The red-robed old man was the corpse sect's head elder, Sun Tai. Sun Tai's expression was sullen as he looked at the middle-aged man before him. He then moved his gaze to the giant demon clan ancestor. He secretly cursed. Although the giant demon clan ancestor was only at the early stage of soul transformation, he knew that members of the giant demon clan gained access to their bloodline's power when they reached the soul transformation stage. Even though he was at the mid-stage of soul transformation, that power was something he wouldn't easily mess with. Sun Tai said, "I am going to take this person away." Fellow cultivator, the middle-aged man from Shuiyu, was about to speak. Sun Tai looked at the middle-aged man and shouted, "Shut your damn mouth and scram!" A mere early-stage soul transformation cultivator, and one that reached it by force, doesn't he have the qualifications to talk to me? The middle-aged man's face changed from blue to red. Ever since he had reached the soul transformation stage, he was treated like a sovereign in Jueyu. Even when meeting other soul transformation cultivators, none of them dared to talk to him like this. Sun Tai snorted and turned his gaze toward the giant demon clan ancestor. The giant demon clan ancestor's expression was sullen as he stared at Sun Tai. After pondering a bit, he shook his head and said, "No, this person must die and his corpse must belong to me." The middle-aged man from Shiyu was surprised. He turned his head to look at the giant demon clan ancestor. This was the first time that he said he wanted the corpse. Sun Tai snorted and shouted, "You are not a member of my corpse sect. What use do you have for the corpse?" The giant demon clan ancestor stared at Sun Tai and decisively said, "I have my own use." He indeed did have use for the corpse. Even if the Shueyu man hadn't come to ask him, he would still have secretly acted to kill Wang Lin. He knew that Xianxia's real name was Wang Lin. Taking back the star compass was just an excuse to kill Wang Lin. The real reason was the news that was brought back by a clan member who went to open a foreign battleground 500 years ago. The heaven-defying bead is a treasure even the Cultivation Alliance wants. If my giant demon clan gets it and gives it to the Cultivation Alliance, we will definitely be granted rank 6 status. Then we can leave Suzaku and get our own giant demon clan planet. Then my clan will have the ability to have ascendant-level cultivators. The heaven-defying bead was obtained by this Wang Lin. All of these thoughts quickly flew through his head. He made up this mind that Wang Lin wouldn't be stolen by anyone else today. That year, the clan member that reported the news was immediately killed by him and had his soul carefully searched. After determining that the clan member didn't tell anyone else and that the number of people that knew was very small, he decided to not kill everyone off and to secretly look for Wang Lin. However, although the ancestor had a lot of power, Wang Lin seemed to have evaporated, and Suzaku was simply too big. Based on information from the clan member, Wang Lin had disappeared inside a spatial rift inside the foreign battleground. Thus, he personally went to the foreign battleground and searched inside the spatial rift for 100 years but still found nothing. He gradually put it in the back of his mind and felt regret. He believed that Wang Lin had died without any remains and the heaven-defying bead was once again lost. However, all of this changed when Xianxia appeared. He found what Chi-Hu said to be strange. After using his status as the ancestor to force Chi-Hu, Chi-Hu finally told him the truth. The ancestor immediately became suspicious. After doing some investigation, he found that Xianxia was Wang Lin. As a result, he immediately became happy. But due to Suzaku's interference, he couldn't act, or else everything would be nothing but a dream. However, he did kill the one other person that knew of this matter. It was a messenger from a rank cultivation country. When the giant demon clan ancestor searched the messenger's soul, he found that the messenger wasn't sure of the news and hadn't reported it. After confirming this, he relaxed and decided to wait for the right moment to kill Wang Lin. One day, Shueyu's Li Yuan came to ask him to set up a formation to help kill Wang Lin. He came up with the excuse of retrieving the star compass so that he could get close to Wang Lin. As a result, even if Suzaku were to look into this matter, Shueyu would take the blow and he would be able to secretly take the heaven-defying bead. Even if Wang Lin were to die, he could use a secret technique to find the whereabouts of the heaven-defying bead. Sun Tai's eyes darkened. He snorted and flew toward Wang Lin. The middle-aged man quickly flew up. He took out a bronze watch and was about to block Sun Tai. But Sun Tai shouted, "Scram!" and a force surged out from Sun Tai's body, causing the middle-aged man to pause for a moment. "You dead?" The giant demon clan ancestor threw out a punch. A black vortex suddenly appeared and closed in on Sun Tai. Sun Tai's right hand pointed at the coffin behind him. The lid of the coffin moved a bit, and a mummified body flew out to fight the giant demon clan ancestor. He took this opportunity to reach out and grab Wang Lin. Wang Lin was very weak at the moment. His eyes were closed, and his face was deathly pale. Without a word, Sun Tai turned around and flew into the rift. The middle-aged man's expression was unsettled. He hesitated for a bit and didn't act. How could the giant demon clan ancestor watch this fat sheep be stolen right out of his hands? He let out a roar as his body crackled, and his body suddenly became 100 feet tall. Then a giant axe appeared in his hand. After chasing Sun Tai into the rift, he swung the axe down, causing a thunderous roar to echo in the void. A giant wave of axe energy shot out, causing Sun Tai's expression to darken. He already knew that the giant demon clan was difficult to deal with. His right hand formed a seal, and he shot it at the axe energy. Boom! After a loud boom, Sun Tai charged out of the rift. Wishing for the like button for the video. Thinking nonsense. Wishing for the like button for the video. Chapter 370, Mutual Destruction. The giant demon clan ancestor let out a roar. With a few steps, he walked out of the rift and chased after Sun Tai. In the northern part of the Suzaku continent, one could see 2 rays of light flying across the sky. While Sun Tai ran, his face was gloomy, and he cursed. "You really think I am scared of you?" His right hand drew a seal, and he pressed it on Wang Lin's forehead. Then he threw Wang Lin's body into the dense forest below. The moment Wang Lin landed, he struggled to open his eyes, and then sat down in the lotus position. He began to cultivate to counter the middle-aged man's domain and Sun Tai's seal. He was awake now and knew that Sun Tai didn't have any good intentions. To Sun Tai, coming to save Wang Lin was better than dying. The giant demon clan ancestor chased after them. With a wave of his giant axe, he sent out a wave of axe energy. With a bang, the space before Sun Tai exploded, creating countless small rifts. Sun Tai cursed. He pointed to the air, and 3 rays of green light flew out. The 3 rays of light turned into 3 corpses that charged toward the giant demon clan ancestor. Sun Tai shouted, "Explode for me!" Bang, bang, bang! Heaven-splitting explosions occurred in the sky. The powerful force from the explosions pushed the giant demon clan ancestor back several dozen feet. Sun Tai's expression was furious as he charged forward. At the same time, his right hand turned into a giant palm that pressed down upon the giant demon clan ancestor. The ancestor was ever gloomy. He was only at the early stage of soul transformation. If it wasn't for the fact that he had a powerful body and his bloodline's power, he wouldn't dare to steal from a mid-stage soul transformation cultivator. However, Wang Lin was too important to his giant demon clan, so he could only fight. The giant palm contained power far beyond spiritual energy. Soul transformation cultivators didn't use spiritual energy from the heavens and earth. They needed celestial spiritual energy to increase their cultivation level. Therefore, their attacks would naturally contain some celestial spiritual energy hidden within. Before, when the middle-aged man and the ancestor attacked Wang Lin, they didn't use any celestial spiritual energy. After all, celestial spiritual energy couldn't be recovered unless they had celestial jade, so they wouldn't carelessly use it. Celestial jades were very difficult to get hold of. This was the reason why there weren't many soul transformation cultivators and why there were so few life and death battles between the ones that were around. Generally speaking, soul transformation cultivators don't casually use celestial spiritual energy, but when they do, their power is terrifying. Using celestial spiritual energy was something unique to cultivators at the soul transformation stage and above. It was the same with domains for soul transformation cultivators and above. This was a change in quality of one's power. Although this palm from Sun Tai was just a simple palm without any powerful techniques behind it. If it was a normal attack, it wouldn't be much, but because it contained a bit of celestial spiritual energy, its power was immense. Even if it were just a simple fireball technique, if it contained a bit of spiritual energy, it would be a dangerous move. The celestial spiritual energy caused the giant demon clan ancestor to be shocked. His eyes lit up and a bit of celestial spiritual energy entered his right hand. He swung down his axe to meet the palm. Boom! After a loud explosion, the ground shattered and rainbow-colored light filled the sky as a shockwave spread out. Half of a huge nearby mountain collapsed into dust. This shockwave came quickly and disappeared just as quick, so it didn't spread too far. After all, neither of them used much celestial spiritual energy. The giant demon clan ancestor's body trembled as blood came seeping out from the corner of his mouth. He was furious, but he didn't charge at Sun Tai. Instead, he charged toward the forest that was collapsing. "I am a mid-stage soul transformation cultivator. I don't believe I can kill you." Once I kill you, I'm sure I can get a good price for the corpse of a giant demon clan member. Sun Tai snorted as he charged forward and raised his hand in the air. He shouted, "Thunder!" With a bang, a ray of black lightning appeared in the sky and descended. Sun Tai shouted, "My thunder domain was obtained after I paid a heavy price to cultivate at the heavenly thunder planet for 100 years. You were merely a branch member of the giant demon clan. Die for me!" The giant demon clan ancestor's expression darkened when he saw the black lightning. He let out a roar, causing his body to grow 30 feet taller, and punched the descending lightning. Boom! Another loud boom. The lightning traveled through the ancestor's body, causing his face to become pale. More blood seeped out the corners of his mouth as he stared at Sun Tai. At this moment, the middle-aged man from Shuiyu quietly teleported next to where Wang Lin was cultivating. He let out a cruel smile as he raised his hand to kill Wang Lin. Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes and revealed a vicious gaze. He had just tried to recover earlier but found that this person's domain and the seal from Sun Tai together had formed a powerful seal. As a result, he couldn't recover any spiritual energy at all. Even when he took pills, the moment the pills dissolved, the spiritual energy would be absorbed by the seals. The amount of spiritual energy he currently had was less than what a foundation establishment cultivator had. It was only at about the level of a third-layer QI condensation cultivator. And it was constantly draining. Once all of the spiritual energy was drained from his body, he would be like a mortal and could be killed easily by a mortal martial artist. His origin soul was extremely weak and could collapse at any time, so he couldn't even leave his body. This was the most serious injury he had ever suffered in his life besides the one time he lost his body. The middle-aged man's eyes lit up and he pressed down with his right hand. But just he did so, a ray of black lightning suddenly descended from the sky. The middle-aged man's expression suddenly changed as he quickly used all of his power to escape. However, the lightning seemed to have grown eyes and chased after him. In the blink of an eye, the lightning and the middle-aged man disappeared over the horizon. "Move! You dare to try sneak by me!" Sun Tai sneered and formed a seal with his hands. He decided to scare away the giant demon clan ancestor before settling down to deal with Wang Lin. He had already decided that he would completely seal Wang Lin this time to prevent his origin soul from being destroyed. The giant demon clan ancestor's eyes revealed a mysterious light. He looked at Sun Tai and said, "I'll take this person away and return him in 7 days." Sun Tai said, without any hesitation, "Not possible. How could he let this person take Wang Lin away? It would be like putting his origin soul in the hands of someone else." The giant demon clan ancestor pondered a bit and then said, "It was you who forced me. This is the first time I have used my bloodline's power since reaching the soul transformation stage. Take my attack." After he finished speaking, he took a deep breath and the veins on his head popped out like he was enduring massive amounts of pain. Soon, a giant vortex appeared behind him. Black light was being emitted by the vortex as it slowly spun. A mysterious force was spreading out from it. Sun Tai's expression changed. Just at this moment, the giant demon clan ancestor shouted, "Turn!" The vortex behind him suddenly began to spin rapidly, and a powerful suction force appeared. However, this suction force had no effect on the surroundings. It only affected Sun Tai. Sun Tai immediately felt the powerful suction force from the vortex and felt himself being pulled. He clenched his teeth and used the celestial spiritual energy in his body without any reservation. He pointed to the air, and a red coffin suddenly appeared. Sun Tai's palm hit the coffin, causing it to shatter. The body of a boy floated out of the coffin. "Turn!" The giant demon clan ancestor shouted again. The veins on his body bulged out even more. The bloodline ability was very stressful to his body, and because his cultivation level wasn't high enough, he could only last a few breaths. The vortex began to spin like crazy and Sun Tai was dragged into it. He revealed a reluctant look and shouted, "Demon child, kill him!" The boy suddenly opened its eyes, revealing a demonic light. It took one step and arrived before the giant demon clan elder. Its speed was several times faster than teleporting. The giant demon clan ancestor saw the boy land a hit on his chest. He suddenly felt a destructive force hit his body. He coughed out a large mouthful of blood as his origin soul quickly escaped his body along with his bag of holding. The boy then kicked a hole through the giant demon clan ancestor's body. However, Sun Tai had already been pulled into the vortex. He let out a scream of frustration and slowly disappeared. The giant demon clan's bloodline's power had no ability to attack due to the low cultivation level of the giant demon clan ancestor. However, it could teleport someone far away from Suzaku and into the distant stars. As the vortex disappeared, Sun Tai also disappeared. The boy was the only thing left floating in the air. After a pause, he chased after the giant demon clan's ancestor. The giant demon clan's ancestor didn't have time to grab Wang Lin. After letting out a frustrated roar, he quickly escaped. The boy quickly chased after him, and the two of them disappeared over the horizon. Wang Lin let out a sigh of relief as he struggled to stand up and walk out of the forest. With every step he took, he could feel this body getting weaker and the amount of spiritual energy in his body lessening. Li Yuanfeng's domain and Sun Tai's seal had fused almost perfectly, sealing his power. The image of the tea leaf became more and more solid until it turned into a scar on Wang Lin's forehead. This scar formed a strange shape, the shape of Sun Tai's seal. Wang Lin bitterly smiled and struggled to walk for a long time. He felt like there was a mountain on top of him and every step was a struggle. By the time he made it out of the forest, all of the spiritual energy in his body had been used up. Not a sliver of it remained. His physical injuries were extremely bad. He felt waves of pain coming from his internal organs, and his origin soul was so weak that it was about to collapse. Once he walked out of the forest, he felt the sunlight on his body. His body suddenly felt really weak, and he blacked out before even falling to the ground. Wishing for the like button for the VIDEO, hoping to charge through the trending charts for the VIDEO this month. Chapter Mortal. After Wang Lin and Red Butterfly's fight, the name Sing Niu gained even more prestige, and the treasures he used were seen by all of the messengers of the various cultivation countries. After these messengers returned to their respective countries, the news spread out. Whether it was the restriction flag, the celestial sword, or the god-slaying war chariot, these items suddenly became the most talked about things among cultivators. The person named Sang Niu had been titled the #1 person under the soul transformation stage on Suzaku. At the same time, Mount Suzaku sent out a message that Red Butterfly was going into closed-door cultivation to attempt to break through to the soul transformation stage. No one questioned this. After all, if Red Butterfly had a breakthrough during her fight, then going into closed-door cultivation was natural. However, as time slowly passed, people found out that Sing Niu had gone missing. No one knew where he had gone. They only knew that Sang Niu had disappeared without a trace when going to Mount Suzaku to get his order. This matter caused a big storm. The old man who held the title of Suzaku came out of his closed-door cultivation and looked to the north. 3 days ago, there were shockwaves containing celestial spiritual energy coming from there. That meant that 2 soul transformation cultivators were using celestial spiritual energy to fight. In addition to that, he also felt the giant demon clan's bloodline power. Although the Suzaku's cultivation was powerful, he wasn't a god that could know things in advance. Suzaku was huge and complex, so, after some extensive searching, he found out that this matter with Sang Niu was started by Shui Yue, and that the giant demon clan participated. However, he couldn't find the identity of the other soul transformation cultivator. In addition, when he spread out his divine sense, he could only vaguely feel where Wang Lin was. He couldn't pinpoint his exact location, which was surprising to him. He judged that Wang Lin's origin soul must have collapsed due to serious injuries. This was why he couldn't pinpoint where Wang Lin was. However, in his eyes, Wang Lin was only one of Liu Mei's cultivation furnaces. He was important, but not that important. Liu Mei go to the northern end of the Suzaku continent. Wang Lin is there after leaving a message for Liu Mei. The old man went back into closed-door cultivation. Shui Yue's actions went against his will. They will definitely be in danger in the future. Liu Mei's figure floated down from Mount Suzaku and turned into a ray of light that flew toward the northern end of the Suzaku continent. Right now, on one of the cliffs of Mount Suzaku, stood a woman wearing a red veil. Her eyes were empty, and there were no signs of life within her. There was a bright red flower near her feet. As the wind blew, the flower trembled as if would be blown away, but it still struggled to grow. Xianxia's figure appeared behind the red-veiled woman. He flicked his finger and the flower at the woman's feet turned to dust. Heartless, I know that you have a tiny bit of your origin soul hidden somewhere, but with me in control, there won't be a second Zijin. Qianfeng's right hand touched the red-veiled woman's face, and he let out an evil smile. 1 month later, in a village in the northern part of the Suzaku continent, a young man was sitting on a rock at the entrance of the village. His face was filled with very shocking scars, making him look very ugly, and his eyes were dim. He was looking into the distance. His eyes weren't focused at all. They only contained sadness and confusion. As villagers passed by the village entrance, they all looked at him with disgust before going around him. The young man's expression didn't change at all as people passed by. He just stared into the distance. Shortly after, a young girl who was wearing flower-patterned top and pants came by. Behind her was a dog the size of a calf. This girl looked to be about 14 or 15 years old. Her face was white, and her eyes were big. The girl stopped 30 feet from the young man and shouted, "Ugly mute, my dad told me to call you back for dinner." The young man turned around, looked at the young girl, and stood up. His legs were a bit numb, maybe because he had been sitting there for too long, so he almost fell over as he tried to stand up, causing the girl to laugh. "Mute, hurry up, I am hungry." The young girl turned around and walked back into the village. The dog ran before her as if it was opening a path. The young man slowly followed the girl. As he looked at the village, the sadness in his eyes deepened. In a house near the entrance of the village sat a middle-aged man. His blue shirt had been washed so many times that it was turning white. There were herbs laid out on the ground. When the wind blew, the fragrance of the herbs spread. The young girl bounced into the room, sat down next to the man, and said, "Dad, I called the mute back." The man frowned. He looked at the girl and shouted, "Behave yourself! Call him uncle!" The girl stuck out her tongue and didn't say anything. Instead, she ran into the house and helped her mom set the table. The man stood up and looked at young man. He said, "Little brother, don't mind her. Yi has always been like this. Come, let me see how much you have recovered." The young man nodded and sat down next to the man. He stretched out his arm, which was very thin. It looked like it was just bones wrapped in skin. The man pressed his hand on the arm. After a while, he let out a smile and said, "Little brother, you are recovering very well. Let me give you some more medicine, and then you will just need to nourish your body and you will be fine." The young man pondered and then nodded. The middle-aged man saw the young man like this and signed. He met this person 1 month ago when he went to the forest to gather wood. This young man was at the brink of death when he found him. He was a doctor and a parent, so he decided to take the young man in and heal him. This person's injuries were very heavy. Even his internal organs were out of place and damaged. The middle-aged man had no confidence in healing the young man at all. He had left it up to fate. However, the young man's body was very strange. After 10 days, his body was getting better and the young man woke up. However, after the person awakened, the middle-aged man found out that the boy couldn't speak. He was a mute. At this moment, a woman walked out of the house and the girl followed behind her. The two of them carried some dishes out and placed them on the table. The girl pouted and said, "Mom, I'm not going to eat with the mute. He is so ugly that I can eat with him here." "You!" The middle-aged man stared at the girl. The woman quickly stood before the young girl and placed some of the dishes into her bowl. "Yi, go eat inside the house." The girl pouted. She was about to speak when the young man picked up his bowl with trembling hands. He stood up, walked out of the yard, sat down on a rock, and stared at the rice in his bowl as he pondered. No one in the cultivation world knew where he was. He was Wang Lin. Someone who once flourished was now in such a state. This was all caused by Xianxia and the giant demon clan. Wang Lin's right hand trembled while he placed the bowl down on the rock. He let out a bitter smile. 1 month ago, his origin soul collapsed. It collapsed, but hadn't completely disappeared. It remained in his body as shattered pieces. However, as time passed, the shattered pieces were slowly dissipating. His body was also heavily damaged, but due to some strange luck, the spiritual energy that released when his origin soul collapsed was able to somewhat repair his body. This was why he was able to get better. However, the current him had lost all spiritual energy and had become a mortal that even had trouble holding a bowl. Right now, even a mortal could knock him to the ground with one punch. What he didn't expect was that the collapse of his origin soul would even affect his original body back in Shu. It had fallen into a deep sleep and hadn't been able to wake up. This was very bad news for Wang Lin. If his original body hadn't fallen asleep, he could have his original body come to pick him up. Then he would just need to find a place filled with spiritual energy to cultivate. But now, all of that went up in smoke. He wasn't mute, he was just unwilling to speak. The marks caused by the T domain caused his face to be extremely ugly, so people were fed up with him. Aside from this couple in the village, no one else ever said anything kind to him. Without any spiritual power, he wasn't able to open his bag of holding. The current him had completely become immortal. Wang Lin let out a sigh and then ate all of the rice in his bowl. In 9 years, Wan Er will have to face the heavens reincarnation cycle again. 9 years Wang Lin swallowed the last bit of rice and revealed a determined gaze. Throughout this month, he was trying to come up with a way to recover his cultivation. As long as the domain and seal were broken, he would naturally regain his cultivation. However, he was at a loss when it came to breaking them. Late at night, Wang Lin lied down in the wood shed in the yard and slowly fell asleep. His body was very weak right now. It didn't even have an ounce of strength. Early in the morning of the next day, the middle-aged man put a basket on his back and went into the mountains with a few hunters to gather herbs. Wang Lin opened his eyes, sat down in the lotus position, and silently cultivated inside the wooden shed. After a while, he let out a sigh. There wasn't any spiritual energy in his body, so it was impossible to cultivate. Only by being in a place with dense spiritual energy could he do some forced cultivation to cause spiritual energy to appear in his body. He bitterly shook his head and walked out of the shed. His body was still weak. Just at this moment, the young girl walked out of the house. After seeing Wang Lin, she pouted and said, "Ugly newt, you have already stayed here for a month. When are you leaving? My house is not a charity house. How could we have that much extra food for you to eat?" The woman walked out of the house and scolded her. How many times has your dad told you to call him uncle?" The girl let out a dissatisfied snort and said, "Shukai." With that, she walked toward the gate. The dog suddenly charged out from the corner of the yard and followed the young girl while wagging its tail. The woman's gaze swept past Wang Lin as she apologetically said, "That child doesn't know any better, so don't mind her. Her dad is going to the mountains to gather herbs. He said your body is very weak, so feel free to stay as long as you want. You can leave once you feel better." In the blink of an eye, half a month passed by. In this half a month, with the help of the middle-aged man's medicine, Wang Lin's body slowly regained a bit of strength. On one late night, Wang Lin walked out of the shed. He looked at the house that the middle-aged man lived in and memorized it before walking out of the yard. He was going to leave. The video schedule for first is up, and I ask all friends not to be stingy. Remember to share Leo. If you're capable, friends, please be prepared to support Leo with a like. You are listening to a completely free audiobook on the Leo Audio YouTube channel. If you enjoy the story, please like the video to motivate the channel. Support Leo with a cup of coffee through the description link or on the screen. If you want to hear any other stories, just comment and let Leo know. Thank you very much for watching the video. Chapter Fire Cloud Village. In this past half a month, Wang Lin had saved up some dried food and wrapped it up. In the company of the moonlight, he walked out of the village. At this moment, he suddenly thought back to 500 years ago, when he was rejected by the Heng Yue sect. He had also left home in the middle of the night. After he left, his journey began. It had been 500 years since then. He let out a sigh and walked into the distance. He had no idea where he was right now. When he was teleported by that transfer array, he didn't have time to figure out where he was. Right now, he only wanted to find a spirit vein so he could use it to gain a bit of spiritual energy, and then figure out a way to break the domain and seal that plagued him. Late at night, the cold wind blew and Wang Lin's body shivered. Wang Lin bitterly smiled and thought about how long it had been since he felt like a real mortal. Even when he was turning into a mortal, it was countless times better than this. Along the way, Wang Lin kept running out of breath, so he had to take breaks. He naturally traveled very slowly. 7 days later, he was still walking on the main road. Although he had no spiritual energy, he was still able to sense it. He did find a few places with spiritual energy, but no matter how hard he tried to cultivate, he couldn't gather any inside his body. Wang Lin bitterly thought, maybe only the local sects have places with thick spiritual energy. However, how would he be able to enter a sect with his current body? Wang Lin sighed. He looked at the sky, and a hint of despair appeared in his heart. But that hint of despair was quickly crushed by his determination. He took a deep breath and muttered, "Shui Yu and Giant Demon Clan, I want to forget what happened. One day I'll pay you back 100 times what you have done to me." He revealed a determined gaze as he stood up and continued to walk forward. But just at this moment, sounds of horses came from behind him. This sound was particularly jarring in the dead of night. As soon as Wang Lin heard the sound, a group of black horses closed in one by one. Sitting on top of the horses were burly men with the faces of murderers. One of the burly men saw Wang Lin as he passed by, and quickly reined in his horse and said, "Ha ha, what an ugly kid, what a money tree." He reached out and grabbed Wang Lin. A shout came out from the front. "Fourth Ma, what are you doing?" "Boss, I found a money tree. If we break this ugly kid's legs, we can use him to block the Heavenly Power Escort Company's carriages on the road. It's better than using our own brothers." The burly man with the knife scar on his face commanded the horse to charge forward. The burly man with the knife scar charged up, raised Wang Lin, and smiled. "Boss, look." Wang Lin's eyes were closed. He was very angry. A few martial artists in the mortal world could easily humiliate him like this. A very large man sat on the horse before them. He looked at Wang Lin and nodded. "Okay, take him." The group of 18 horses galloped into the distance. They stopped at a fork in the road 1,500 kilometers away. Each of them quickly put on their masks, spread out to the sides of the road, and hid themselves. These people's movements were very skillful. It was clear that they did this sort of thing often. In the blink of an eye, the only people that remained were the burly man with the knife scar and Wang Lin. He was holding Wang Lin in place. "Little Six, take away your brother's horse." Just as he finished speaking, a thin young man came out and took the horse away. "Little brat, consider yourself unlucky." The burly man with the knife scar let out a vicious smile as he placed Wang Lin down and unhinged his jaw. Then he poked a few spots on Wang Lin's shoulders and legs with his finger. With a few crackling sounds, Wang Lin's shoulders and legs were shattered. Waves of pain filled his body and giant beads of sweat covered his forehead. His gaze locked onto the burly man with a knife scar. He burned that man's face into his memory. The burly man with knife scar snorted. He took out some medical paste and smeared it over Wang Lin. Then he disappeared into the bushes. As Wang Lin lied there on the ground, a murderous intent filled his body. He had never been treated like this in his life, but his body was simply too weak, so he eventually passed out. Time slowly passed by. 1 hour later, the sounds carriages came from the distance and gradually got closer. Then the carriages suddenly stopped, and someone charged forth on a house. He quickly arrived and looked down at Wang Lin before shouting, "Leader, it's a dead body." With that, he jumped off the house and kicked Wang Lin to the side of the road. He then got back on the horse and returned to the carriages. The carriages once again moved forward, but just as the carriages passed where Wang Lin was, torches suddenly lit up around them and laughter filled the air. "Heavenly Power Escort Company, did you think I wouldn't rob you if you took the long way around? Stay behind for me!" A loud shout came from the forest and 18 vicious men walked out. Someone with a torch lit up the paste that was smeared on Wang Lin. This paste turned into a gas that soon covered the carriages. "Fire cloud poison!" A shout came from the carriages. Shortly after, each member of the escort party felt all of their strength leaving their bodies. That is correct. This is the special poison the Fire Cloud heroes use. Hey, this poison affects the blood and is activated by fire. Today, none of you will escape. A massacre began. In less than 5 minutes, more than half of the escort team was killed. One scream after another echoed through the night. The 18 bandits looked very vicious under the light of the torches as they murdered the escort team. "Haha, big brother. There were even 3 women. This is enough for us to have some fun once we get back." The burly man with the knife scar cut off someone's head and then picked up one of the women. This woman was pretty, but her screaming face was pale and filled with fear. The knife-scarred burly man laughed. He touched the woman a bit before putting her over his back and letting her hit him. 2 more men quickly came up and grabbed the other 2 women as they laughed at the first woman. Soon, horses came out from the side of the road. The very large man took out a box and looked inside. With a very satisfied expression, he shouted, "Brothers, let's go!" These people all got on their horses and were about to leave with the 3 crying women. The knife-scarred burly man went by Wang Lin with the woman over his shoulder and said, "Boss, this kid still has breath left in him. How about we keep him for a few more days to use again?" The large man nodded and quickly left on his horse. The knife-scarred man kicked Wang Lin to another person. That person caught him and carried him. They all shouted as they rode off into the distance, leaving behind the bodies which emitted a powerful stench of blood. When the sun rose in the morning, the men were halfway up the mountain. There was a huge village there with 3 large words on a board at the front. Firecloud Village. Everyone has returned. Open the gate. The gate of the village opened and the men quickly entered. Soon, the village became very lively. The knife-scarred man that was holding the woman got off his horse and said, "Boss, I am going to go and enjoy myself first." With that, he entered a house and soon the miserable screams of a woman could be heard. These burly men were clearly used to these kind of things, so they all laughed. The other 2 women were also taken away. Wang Lin was thrown into a water prison behind the village. It was completely dark in the cage. There was no light or sound. He also couldn't feel anything with his feet. It was as if he was hanging in mid-air. His body was suspended in the air and swung back and forth. Wang Lin moved his swollen head, and the pain from his arms and legs suddenly appeared like fire burning his skin. Wang Lin opened his eyes and became completely sober. A miserable scream came from the distance, only it was very faint by the time it reached this prison. However, because it was so silent here, the scream seemed to linger forever. After losing all of this spiritual energy in his origin soul collapsed, Wang Lin no longer felt like he could move anything with just a look like he did before. Even though his surroundings were completely dark, he realized that he was trapped in a small space. His arms were tied and he was left hanging with his body in the cold water. The water that he couldn't see the color of covered his body up to his neck and released a foul smell that would make anyone nauseous. Wang Lin quickly raised his head high so he could breathe. It was like being sealed inside a well. After the miserable screams ended, it was as silent as a grave once more. It seems that a cultivator that has lost everything is even worse than a mortal. Wang Lin's eyes were calm. A hint of anger that came from his frustration was hidden very well within his eyes. The Wang Lin that could move the heavens and shake the earth no longer existed. Wang Lin had lost all of his spiritual energy, his origin soul had collapsed, and he didn't have the strength of a mortal. He couldn't even open his bag of holding. He had also lost track of his bag of holding. It was definitely taken away by those martial artists. At this moment, Liu Mei's beautiful figure flew over the Firecloud Village. She didn't even lower her head, because she didn't know that the person she was searching for was in that village. As Wang Lin silently pondered, his eyes became brighter and brighter. This water cage had spiritual energy denser than any other area he had been to after leaving the village. This spiritual energy didn't come from the mountain, but from the water. The VIDEO has reached first place in the ranking but still can't maintain the top position. Urgently wishing for all friends to push a round of VIDEO, Leo is extremely grateful. Chapter Mosquito Beast. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He then slowly closed his eyes and began to quietly cultivate. The place he was being held at was completely quiet, which was similar to where a cultivator would cultivate. Wang Lin's entire body from the neck down was in the water. The spiritual energy inside the water slowly gathered toward Wang Lin's body, but a thin barrier seemed to prevent the spiritual energy from being absorbed. Even if a bit of spiritual energy entered his body, it would be pushed out by that thin barrier. As a result, as time slowly passed, the spiritual energy inside the water cage became even more dense. In the Firecloud Village, torches lit up the area even at night. Sounds of people enjoying themselves could be heard along with the screams of women. At this moment, inside a rather luxurious cottage, sat the large burly man with an open box before him. There was a pearl the size of a fist that emitted a gentle light inside the box. Greed filled the large burly man's eyes when he picked up the pearl. He muttered, "What a big pearl. It should definitely fetch a good price." After a while, he put the pearl back inside the box and closed it. Then his eyes fell on the other object on the table. This was a gray bag. When the man picked up the bag, he felt that it was very light, like there was nothing inside. What surprised the man the most was that there was no opening to this bag. "What is this?" The man pondered a bit before using all of his strength to try to rip the bag open. No matter how much strength he used, even when the vein on his head popped out, He couldn't tear the bag open. Could this be the silk from the heavenly silkworm? Yes, it must be. How could I not be able to tear it open otherwise? Legend has it that the heavenly silkworm's silk is most afraid of water. I don't believe I can burn this. The large burly man placed the bag in the fireplace. After a very long time, there was no change to the bag. The large burly man was stunned. He didn't even feel any heat from the bag. What the hell is this? The large burly man took out a large blade. This blade was something he had spent a lot of money to get custom made, and it was very sharp. He tried to slice the bag with it. After the blade sliced past the bag, he looked at the bag and was shocked. He picked up the bag and carefully examined it before laughing. Treasure. This is a true treasure. If I place this before my chest, it will definitely save my life in an important moment. I didn't think that ugly brat would have such a treasure. Too bad there is only one. If there were more and I could find a way to link them together to make a set of clothes, that would be even better. He carefully placed the bag close to his chest. Then his eyes lit up and he muttered, I wonder where that ugly brat got this kind of treasure. I have to go ask. Thinking about this, he stood up, walked out, and charged toward the prison. Along the way, everyone who saw him revealed satisfied smiles. The large, burly man quickly arrived at the prison. There were two henchmen talking to each other as they guarded the prison. When they saw the large, burly man, they immediately said, Greetings, big boss. The large, burly man snorted and asked, Where did you guys throw the ugly brat we brought back? One of the men quickly answered, In the northern room. The large, burly man said, Open the door. The man quickly ran to the side next to a metal fence and raised it up. He smiled. Boss. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly fell to the ground. The fence fell as well. The sound of something falling into water came from inside the fence, and then a young man floated out. This young man's eyes were filled with coldness and rage. The large, burly man was stunned as he stared at the person who floated out. Then he immediately realized who it was and turned around to escape. However, he only took 2 steps before an invisible hand caught him. With one squeeze, he didn't even have time to scream as he was turned into a pile of blood and flesh. The bag flew to the young man. This young man was Wang Lin. The spiritual energy inside the water cage was finally able to get through an opening, allowing him to have a bit of spiritual energy within his body. However, this bit of spiritual energy was simply too small. After flying out and killing 2 people, he had used up almost all of the spiritual energy he had gathered. He quickly poured the rest of the spiritual energy into his bag. Mosquito beast! The bag emitted a green light and a ray of black light flew out, turning into the mosquito beast that was the size of a small mountain. The remaining henchman was terrified, and then the smell of urine appeared. This person's pants were wet and he fell over. He passed out from being too scared. After the mosquito beast appeared, it let out a roar that immediately spread across the village. All other sounds immediately stopped, leaving only the mosquito's angry roar. His mind was linked with Wang Lin's, so when he saw how weak Wang Lin currently was, he became very angry. Without waiting for Wang Lin's order, it pointed its mouth at the remaining henchman and sucked. The henchman quickly turned into a pile of bones. After releasing the mosquito beast, Wang Lin let out a sigh of relief, although he no longer had spiritual energy in his body. With the mosquito beast out, he would have some safety. The mosquito beast's roar shocked everyone inside the village. Everyone charged over with their weapons. However, they had only taken a few steps before they saw the mosquito the size of a small mountain. They all sucked in breaths of cold air and their knees went soft. A few timid people began screaming. Monster! Wang Lin's body was still in pain. He coldly looked at the ground and found the knife-scarred man. Wang Lin pointed at that person, and then the mosquito charged at that man with its body. As the mosquito collided with the knife-scarred man, the man let out a miserable scream, and his body was turned to mush. Even the house behind him had collapsed. The mosquito floated above Wang Lin and coldly looked at everyone. At this moment, everyone inside the village put down their weapons. Their legs were shaking, and the fear in their eyes had reached its limit. At this moment, someone walked out from the crowd. This person was a scribe. Although he was terrified, he forced himself to calm down. After he came out, he bowed and said, with a trembling voice, Immortal, please don't be angry, don't be angry. We really didn't know Immortal S identity before. We really didn't know. Wang Lin stared at this person and asked, "What country is this?" The scribe quickly said, "This place is in the northern part of the country of Pilu." Country of Pilu, so this place is the northern part of the Suzaku continent. Wang Lin pondered a bit and then said, "Dig through this dungeon to let the water flow out. How many days do you need?" The scribe immediately said, with trembling voice, 3 days, no, 1 day. "We can do it in 1 day." Wang Lin nodded and said, "Start." He didn't ask the mosquito beast to help. He had it guarding him. The scribe relaxed a bit. He immediately turned around and shouted, "Everyone, come here and dig this place up." All of the people in the village moved, but they were all so terrified that they couldn't use any strength. This was especially true for the 16 people that brought Wang Lin back. Wang Lin closed his eyes and calmly cultivated. The mosquito beast circled Wang Lin once before landing next to him. He would occasionally look at the people of the village with a vicious gaze. All 200+ people of the Fire Cloud village used all of their strength to dig an opening into the water prison. When they were done, a large amount of dirty water flowed out, but what shocked the villagers was that the water was only dirty at the start. As more water flowed out, it became clearer, and near the end, there was even a fragrance coming from the water. After 1 day passed, the water gradually stopped flowing. The people of the village stopped working and looked at Wang Lin with terror in their eyes. Wang Lin ignored them. With the help of the mosquito, he entered the prison again. The current prison was like a deep well. Sitting inside, Wang Lin closed his eyes and began to cultivate. The mosquito was still by Wang Lin's side, guarding him. Anyone who was willing to come close was playing with their life. After waiting for a very long time and hearing no commands from Wang Lin, the scribe hesitantly backed up a few steps. After seeing no reaction from the mosquito beast, he backed up even more. The other people of the village followed suit, and soon no one was around anymore. These people of the village were ready to escape the village when Wang Lin's voice came from the deep well. "No one is allowed to leave." The scribe secretly groaned but respectfully responded. Just like this, the Fire Cloud village became more calm than it ever had been. There were no sounds. It was as if the entire village was dead. All of the passing travelers and escort companies were very shocked because they hadn't seen the normally very arrogant 18 heroes of Fire Cloud village around in the past 2 months. One day, Wang Lin opened his eyes inside the deep well. All the injuries in his body had healed, but the T-domain and seal on his body hadn't loosened at all. In these 2 months of time, I have only recovered to about the 2nd stage of QI condensation. After the domain and the seal fused, the resulting barrier became too powerful. I must find a place with more spiritual energy. Unfortunately, my origin soul has shattered and I can barely keep the fragments from dissipating. So there is no way for me to take out the heaven-defying bead. Otherwise, with the spiritual energy gathered inside the bead, I could recover a lot. However, I do have some top-quality spirit stones, so I won't be short on spiritual energy for now. The first thing I must do is recover my origin soul so I can take out the bead. This place isn't a spirit vein, but this water has spiritual energy.